So this might come as a surprise.
We each have one wife.
We do.
Yeah,
we do.
We don't have wives.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I'm not from America. I'm from Canada. Peep the patch on my bag. Thank you very much.
So you've decided to ruin your life forever. The return of the draft segment.
Yes.
What?
That has real dramatic impact on how we live our life outside of the phone.
Okay, well, social media can reach more people in the same geographic region for less cost, and then even if we don't reach any of them, that's Matt Damon.
Right, you see Matt Damon show.
I know who that is. That's meant to live, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. This question is worded in such an asinine way. My BS meter's going off. Mm-hmm. Well, hey there, and welcome to the Bro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him the Arrow Presbyterian. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello.
We've got many great questions from the people of Pro Church Nation. If you want your question answered, you can send us a text to 1-800-485-3139, or you can email us, hello@prochurchtools.com. Shout out to Pro Church Nation for sending in their questions and the Arrow Presbyterian recommendation, which I cannot take credit for. One of the brilliant minds in Pro Church Nation came up with that.
That was so clever, and might have come in from someone who knows that I've been reading a lot of Eugene Peterson this year, because Eugene Peterson also was a Presbyterian minister.
Oh,
yes.
Wow! So it wasn't just some random denomination.
See, they might know.
They're on the inside.
Yeah.
Well, I did get several questions from your wife today that I think we should ignore. I don't think
for sure you should.
I don't think that one was from her.
You know what? Until she listens to a full episode of this show front to back, she has no,
Wait till we get to
she
her
has
questions.
No right.
They're just like landmines. She's like, we'll see what he says when he gets home today. How pregnant is she? 7 months?
Yeah,
many months.
yeah.
It's just. It's not.
Things are really falling apart at our household right now.
It's not safe.
Yeah.
A reminder: the Pro Church Tools Show. We've been doing a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
And we're not only going to be doing interviews, we're still going to be doing shows, just Alex and myself. You know, Bro Church Tools, that's meant to be kind of a more relaxed, more free-flowing, rapid-fire question and response.
Yeah.
Lots of questions, some fun. But we're here, of course, to help you with your church as well, which is what our first question is dedicated to.
The first question reads, "Hey, Brady and Alex, thank you so much for all you do. What's the best way to share all of social media content using one app?"
So this might come as a surprise, but I do not use social media schedulers. I publish every social post directly from my phone, and there are a few reasons for this. The first is that not all features can be used when you're scheduling content. Mm-hmm. A few, one that I always use, which is cross-posting to Facebook. Now, back in the day, cross-posting, not a good idea, but when I go and upload a reel, I cross-post that to Facebook. Now, you could just say, well, Brady, why wouldn't you just schedule it to Facebook as well? Mm-hmm. And we'll get into the second reason for that. But you also cannot use collab posts when you schedule. This is really important for a lot of churches because they want to maybe publish to their church page, but then also their pastor's page. Mm-hmm. So you're in new features when they come out, they're not going to be available. You know, if you're using trending sounds, if that's something that is important to you, you can't schedule content because you would need to use the trending sound on the platform. And so that's another feature that can't be used. And so that's reason number one. Reason number two is that I don't want my video quality to suffer. We've run into this issue many times over the years with different schedulers, and I'll give you the one that I do recommend at the end of this question because there are many reasons to use a scheduler, even though I don't. But we've had issues where, remember back in the day where you couldn't, like APIs weren't open to the extent that they are now with scheduling. So you couldn't like actually post to Instagram video pre-reels using a scheduler. Right. But then there were these tools that were like, well, we have these like cloud devices and they're actual phone operating systems that we log into your actual account and we post for you. Like there were all these crazy workarounds. Well, those workarounds would almost always come at the cost of your video being compressed a second time. Mm-hmm. So now you might have a color shift or a gamma shift. Maybe your video is not quite as crisp. And for us, like we're filming on great cameras, we're editing in Resolve, we're painstakingly, Alex will attest to this, working on the color grading. Nothing's ever good enough for me. To then have that shift on a double compression, that is just a no-go. Now, that doesn't always happen, but it seems to happen like enough, and still, you can, on the scheduler we use, we can uncheck it, but then that brings about a whole host of new issues.
Right.
Reason number 3 is because I'm a conspiracy theorist. Some people will say, hey, if you don't publish directly on the app itself, which also have their own scheduling tools, you're going to risk reach being throttled. I don't believe that that is a thing, but to the extent that it might be, hey, if I'm not using those scheduling tools, then they never have the opportunity to throttle reach whatsoever.
Right.
Any additions from you on this before we jump into the tool that I do recommend?
That all makes sense. And we have been talking about this a lot lately about how maybe the frequency at which we post is not as important as it once was. You no longer have to be posting every day, but the consistency and the quality does have to be there. And so in a former life when churches were intent on posting every single day, sometimes 2 times a day, I understand the feeling. And sure, there is still, I believe probably there is still a time and a place to use a scheduler, but you're likely posting less content than you were before. And the goal is to be posting higher quality content. So all the more reason to post natively and make sure you're squeezing all of the quality that you can out of these platforms. We all know how hard we work to export high quality videos. And even when you post natively, sometimes it's like, man, I wish that video would look better than it does, because it looked great when I exported it. If I'm playing it off my Finder, it looks awesome, but on Instagram, it's just not kind of coming through. And so if we're really focused on higher quality content nowadays, all the more reason to be posting natively to squeeze all of that quality that you can out of the platform.
One more feature that I realized that you can't use when you're scheduling is repositioning the cover on the Instagram grid. Yes. And so that's important to me. So when we're working with our churches at social sermons, we have to create covers that we know will be cropped appropriately automatically. But for our content, we shoot it a bit differently. And so every time we upload a custom cover, but then I have to reposition it so that the title and my face fit in that 1x1 crop, which just would be a little bit more of a hassle if I was scheduling. Now, we do use a scheduler with all of the churches that we work with at Social Sermons. And the tool that we use is called Vista Social. We chose it because at the time, it was one of the few, maybe the only platform that I could find that would schedule to Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. So we're creating social sermons for churches. We need to schedule to all of those platforms. It was the only one that would do it. It also has this really great review tool baked in, where every time we have a social sermon that's complete, we send it out to the churches. They will click a link in their email, and then they'll get to review the post directly in Vista Social. If they reject it, they can provide feedback, and that goes directly to their editor, and then they can make the revisions necessary, repeat the approval process, or they can approve it right from there, and it's good to go. So it's nice and collaborative. It's got good reporting. At least on the plan we are, it's quite affordable. It's like $3 per month per social platform.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so if you we're publishing to 5 tools, like $15 a month, let's say, and it's quite robust. Those are the tools and features that matter the most to us in the platform, but there are plenty more as well. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds like that would be a really useful tool for churches with large teams with many different social accounts, especially that collaborative feature. You and I use tools like frame.io for collaboration on video edits. This makes sense in a social setting where there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts, maybe multiple staff members, multiple campuses, and lots of different social accounts.
That's another great point why schedulers can be useful, because we all know the horrors of trying to figure out admins on Facebook. Facebook famously wants us to all die and drown in a series of reset your password, incorrect password, cannot be previous password, 2FA, didn't receive the 2FA, security code, Facebook shut down forever. You logged in? Well, have fun in this terrible user experience anyway. Can't find anything that you need. The nice thing is one person can connect their Facebook account to Vista Social. And then you could invite as many admins. It doesn't cost us extra to have admins, at least on the plan we're on. So you could invite all 10 people, and then they can collaborate, but they don't need to have permissions. And so when churches are working with us, this is great because they don't need to make us admins on their social account. They can just grant us access collaboratively through that third-party software. At the end of the day, you have to figure out what sacrifice you want to make. For me, I'm glad to sacrifice convenience, which is what a scheduler really brings, for the reasons that I outlined. For your church, it might make sense to sacrifice some of those features for the convenience and the time that you'll gain back from using a scheduler, even if it costs you a bit of money. And so I don't really think there's a wrong answer, but some people are surprised when they find out that I don't use a scheduler.
Well, there you go. Next question on this episode. of the Bro Church Tools show. How did you guys meet your wives?
So my wife,
We each have one wife.
we do.
Yeah,
We do.
We don't have wives.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That didn't cross my mind. So my wife was the it girl at youth group. So I attended a Baptist church growing up, really small, no PA system, no microphones, no nothing. I get connected to this Pentecostal youth group, and they had drums, and they had kids my age, and first place I ever felt like accepted as a human. And I was like, this place is awesome, church is great, and I'm all in. Now, what I've come to realize in the last week is that I was raised in a household with a lot of feminine energy.
I can't tell you how many times in the last week since we had this conversation, it has come up in my conversations with friends, with family. I'm glad to hear that this conversation was as illuminating for you as it was for me.
So like,
Yes.
that's amazing to hear. Okay, so what started all of this was I began reading some books on masculinity. And the first one was a tough read because at the very end, it basically said the thesis here is that men need to rise up and inflict violence upon people in gangs. And I was like, what? Tough read.
Yeah.
So the second one that I read, and I started reading these books because I was like, I'm quite confident in my own masculinity, but like, I'm looking at my daughters, and I'm looking at like my two nephews, I'm looking at your little boy, and soon to be two little boys, and I'm like, I don't know, like, if they ask me, like, what is I don't really know. Like, I have, one of my friends, his kid's like, just a teenager. So, oh, he's hitting that age where, like, who?
Yeah, they're going to ask.
Yeah. and who's influencing them? I
Yeah.
realized, I was like, okay, at least on the political spectrum, one side has really nothing to say about masculinity because they're really scared to talk about it. And the other side has a lot of, like, maybe really bad examples of masculinity. And if they're the only examples, I think I should figure this out for myself. And the answer is we need to inflict violence upon women. But not children, maybe children.
I can't believe that book was so veiled that it took to the very end for the author to come out and say, like, actually, this is what I'm here to tell you.
And the reason I came across that book was like I went to these aren't the types of books I normally read. So I went to like best books on masculinity, and then it gave a bunch that looked like they were from a wide variety of sources. So the second one I read was called The Way of the Superior Man. I thought it was very good. I liked it a lot. And one of the things that it talked about was like, hey, typically someone's going to have more masculine energy or more feminine energy. And that's what led us to this conversation where I realized that my household growing up had a lot of feminine energy. My mom was kind of like the emotional and intellectual head of the house, and she had a ton of feminine energy. And then my dad, curiously, was a firefighter for 30 years, which is about as like masculine as you can think, but he's incredibly tender. He's incredibly emotionally like delicate. Not soft, but like tender.
Yeah. He's not gathering a gang and inflicting violence upon people. He's just like, he's the opposite of that.
Yes, right. And so I kind of grew up and like I was very in touch with like the feminine energy in my own life.
Yeah.
And this had some unfortunate side effects in the sense that I had a lot of women friends, and it was sometimes hard to make guy friends. And then also, like, the opposite sex did not find me especially attractive, I think, because I wasn't resembling some of those, like, masculine traditional traits. Until I got to church. Because I do have a lot of very traditional masculine things. Like, I'm very ambitious. I am very confident. I have high self-esteem, and I have high drive to, like, achieve things. And so what my wife will tell you, she's like, I just remember, like, you were so sure of yourself. And I was drawn to you for that reason. But I was also in touch with my emotions.
Right.
But I didn't really know that this was happening.
Yeah.
So it seems like I may have hurt some feelings along the way because I would get close enough to women that were like, he must be interested in me. And I was like, nah, man, we're just vibing.
buds, yeah.
And so that was tough.
This is just girl talk. Yeah.
Yeah, that was tough. So, met her in youth group.
How old were you?
I met her. I was in 10th grade.
Okay. And then started dating.
As soon as we graduated high school, because in my youth group, you had to wait.
Oh.
So as soon
So
as
the interest was there, just not the permission.
as soon as we graduated, I went to my parents and her parents and we would like to officially start dating. I went to my youth pastor. I've told you the story. He said, so you've decided to ruin your life forever. I was like, man, I'm 18.
Yeah.
So we dated for a year. Then we moved out to Edmonton to begin Bible college. lived on our own separately for 2 years, got married going into third year as juniors, lived in Edmonton for the final 2 years, probably the worst 2 years of our life in Edmonton, newly married, and then moved back to Ontario. Company officially gets incorporated in 2014, which is 10 years next year. So there
Turns
you go.
out to be the best decision of your life.
Wow. Leaving Edmonton?
No, starting to date your wife.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. 100%. We were watching, we were watching The Love is Blind after the altar. Have you seen?
Haven't seen it yet.
What are you doing?
Listen, we're watching Only Murders in the Building.
Never heard of it.
You must hear of
I
it.
don't
and you
like. No, I
must-
don't like watching the murder shows.
It's not that. It's Selena Gomez, Martin Short, and Steve Martin, and it's a comedic whodunit.
Oh,
It's great.
Okay.
So we're in the third of 3 seasons, and we are, of course, also watching reality TV, and we're in the new season of The Ultimatum, which is a hot mess. So the Love is Blind reunion.
you can't watch The Ultimatum. Even I'm not that depraved.
We can, we have, and we will. What we won't watch is Too Hot to Handle.
Oh, praise God. Temptation Island. Okay, so in After the Altar, no spoilers, but there's this one couple that talks about, first year marriage, it's really tough, and like it requires a lot of sacrifice and compromise, but it's worth it. And I said to Britt when we were watching that, I remember describing our marriage in the same way. But like in the last 5 years, and this couple said, hey, it's not perfect. I was like, if you asked me what your marriage is like, I would say, no, it is actually perfect. By human standards, I cannot imagine a better human who I love more, who is my best friend, whom I love spending time with. We have amazing kids. She makes me laugh. There's not a single human being on earth that could fulfill that better, which maybe is something that you earn over time. Like it's been 11
Yes,
years now.
yes.
And because I did used to say it that way, or maybe we're just in a really good season that's been quite long at this point, and maybe things will get tougher again because they were tough at the beginning. I'm not certain, but I used to think, like, hey, you know what? It's just work. And you hear that a lot about marriage.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's work, which is true, but like, there's also this amazing reward, and it doesn't just come when you're 50 or 60. Like, I'm 32, and like, I spend all day with her.
Yeah.
I'm here at the office recording now. I'm never here. I'm at home
Yeah.
with her
Yeah.
and the kids, and it's great. So that's my long story.
That was the best piece, and I can confidently say the best piece of marriage advice that we got. We got it from a seasoned couple in our lives that we love and we respect. They've been married a long time, and they said to us when we got married or shortly thereafter, they said like, "Hey, you're gonna hear a lot of like, oh yeah, out of the honeymoon phase yet? Have you had the first big one yet? This, that, and the other." And it's this general attitude that marriage only gets harder, or in some cases like worse. And they said, and they've lived this long enough, they've proved it to be true. They said, if you just believe that like it only gets better from here, like that can be true for you. It likely won't get easier. You'll have really challenging seasons, like, and of course, for those of us that have children, we know that like life doesn't get easier as you buy a home and you start building a family and all these things. But it can get better, and we've chosen to believe that over the last 7 years, and it's proven to be true for us as well. It sounds like you married your soulmate, which I don't know.
Soulmates, those aren't real.
So I don't believe that either. But
We became soulmates.
yes, exactly. And in the story I'm about to tell about how I met my wife, some folks might have their belief in soulmates rekindled because it's kind of a wild story. But Rebecca, I can't start with Rebecca. I have to start with myself. Graduated high school, 18. Thought about going to film school. Thought about going to Redeemer Bible College. Actually, you don't know this about me because this memory just resurfaced this weekend. Thought about going to Redeemer because I wanted to play volleyball there. But I broke my leg in my senior year and had my volleyball career kind of altered.
Were you a setter?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're short.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah,
same.
yeah.
That
And
was my
soft
physique.
hands because I grew up in a similar environment to you, very in touch with my feminine side. Thanks, Mom. So I graduated high school and I wasn't convinced of a direction that I wanted to go. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my parents were very gracious. They didn't force me to go to university that year. They allowed me to take, what we affectionately call like a gap year.
I took the same.
Yeah, and so my brother was a Finnish carpenter at that time, owned his own business, and so again, very gracious, just let me come work with him. So I'm working with him. And
Wait, you worked with a carpenter in your gap year? I worked with a carpenter in my
grew up
gap
in
year.
Southern Ontario. What else is there? Like, makes sense.
Yeah, but like actual carpentry,
Yeah.
like that's crazy.
Yes.
I didn't even know
And and neither of us a good fit there, right?
that. Correct.
Like could do it well enough to pass, but like couldn't do this for very long.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so I got the opportunity during that time to fly to Uganda. A friend of mine is the Canadian ambassador for the Hydrocephalus and Spina Bifida Association.
No, okay.
Of course, you've heard of it. And he's also in a band, a frontman for a band. And I used to do a lot of photo and video work for his band. So he was going to this conference, and he heard in conversations that they were hoping to get it like documented, like have someone film it. And so he reached out to the organization. He said, "Hey, I've got this close friend. I know him really well. He'd be a great candidate to like bring along and film this conference." And so he asked them. They said yes. He asked me, and I said like obviously yes. But the conference was only 4 days long. And I said to my parents, I'm like, if I'm flying all the way to Africa, I would rather not just go for 4 days. Like I want to spend some time there, maybe a few weeks up to a month. I want to backpack. And my mom like just would have none of this idea. Her baby going to wander across the continent. There was a guy that I worked with my brother. There was 3 of us. So the other guy's name is Matt. He had done the same thing. He did Cairo to Cape Town with a backpack. He did He did a DTS with YWAM there. And he's like, "Yeah, you should do this." I said, "Mom, Matt says I should do it." Anyway, somehow I got my dad on my side. My dad got my mom reluctantly on our side, so they said yes. So I went and I did the conference for 4 days, and then for 3.5 weeks, I just wandered across Uganda with my camera in my hands and a backpack on my back. But because my friend Matt had done the DTS there 10 years prior, he said, "Hey, the YWAM base in Uganda," he showed me where it is. It's like 75 acres. It's beautiful. He says, "You should go see it because it's beautiful, but also you can stay there for like $4 a night. So it's a cheap place to stay." It's like, great. So a couple weeks into my trip, I connected with the head of the base there. I said, "Can I come?" He said, "No problem." So I came to the base. I'm at the YWAM base. And I'm sitting there waiting to talk to him. His name's Dr. Tim. And I'm waiting there for him. And I'm just sitting there on my own. And out the door, I see the class of students get released from whatever biblical studies class they were doing. And out of this building walks this long curly-haired goddess. She's got this long skirt on, the t-shirt. She's holding a stack of books, like just the way you would write it up in a script. And she's walking along. I see her out there. I'm beholden by her beauty. And Rebecca is a very outgoing type person, and so Dr. Tim actually assigned her with the task of showing me around.
Oh.
And so that's how we met. And she asked me, she said, "So where in America are you from?" And I was offended by the question. And I said, "I'm not from America. I'm from Canada." Peep the patch on my bag. Thank you very much. And she had a bit of a southern accent then, not too much, but some. And I said, "So where are you from in the South?" Yeah. She told me South Carolina. Now here's where the story hinges. I was in a long-term relationship at this point. We'd been dating for 2 years. And I didn't know this, but Rebecca was also in a long-term relationship at that point.
Oof.
And when she said she was from South Carolina, my heart sank a little bit. And I kind of ignored that because I was in a committed dating relationship. But now looking back, like that moment is so profound to me. Because it sank thinking like, oh, this could never work. Anyway, so we got to know each other just for a few days. Because she was leaving to go on outreach. She'd gone, Kenya and Tanzania. We became Facebook friends. Didn't like stay connected. I think she sent me a message on New Year's. Happy New Year's. I'm home at this point, and I felt really drawn to the discipleship training school with YWAM. I said to my parents, like, I think I want to go back to Uganda and to that base and do my DTS there. Again, somehow I convinced them both to say yes. And so February 14th, Valentine's Day, I think, I land back in Uganda. And who's still there? Rebecca. And she was doing a Year for God program. So she had just finished her DTS. She was going to be there another 6 months, which is as long as my DTS. And we got to know each other during that time. We got to learn, both of our other relationships dissolved. We got to learn that we were interested in each other, but not too dissimilar from your youth group situation.
Oh, classic YWAM.
And YWAM.
You cannot date, except the only reason we exist is for you to find your partner.
Exactly. So we knew we liked each other, tried to keep it as low-key as possible.
Yeah.
Got in trouble.
Of course.
And I had to go on my outreach. She went up north to work in a children's home for kids with HIV and AIDS. And we were reunited when I was graduating. And as soon as, this is a video show, so I'm going to put this picture up on the screen. It is the outfit that we both wore to my graduation. We went into town, bought a big swath of fabric and got matching outfits made for my graduation just to stick it to our leaders at YWAM. So I show up to my graduation.
love
I've
this.
graduated. We're wearing matching outfits. Our relationship began that day. We got to spend a week together in Uganda before we had to part ways and
Yikes.
fly home. And our relationship was a week old. We'd known each other for 6 months. And listener, when I tell you, we had to decide when we parted ways, a week after, officially starting dating, we had to decide, like, if we're going to try this, we're not going to try it. We're going to do it. And we're like, this is going to be forever. Because if it's not going to be forever, let's not try this.
It's not worth that.
I live in Niagara Falls. She lives in South Carolina. It's 12 hours by car away. Like, we're not going to do this if we're not going to do it. And we flew on the same plane to Brussels. And in Brussels, Belgium, in the airport, we said goodbye and said,
I don't like this story right
I
now.
know. And said we're going to do it. And so that was July. Her first trip to Canada was August of that year. My first trip to South Carolina was October of that year. We did 4 years long distance between here and South Carolina, thanks to Skype. You know what? I've been thinking about this. Skype really dropped the ball when COVID happened. Like, where did Zoom come from? Skype had the market. Yeah. The platform existed.
It's an all-time bag fumble.
Yeah. So 4 years of long distance between here and South Carolina. Now she's been here 7 years. Just recently passed her citizenship test. So one of our newly minted Canadians.
One of us.
Yeah, we've been married for 7 years. Two offspring.
And then there was more long distance in there too, because she had to do more training, and then she's living in Buffalo or she's living in Toronto.
We did it 3 more times. So she moved here. I
was here for this, and I don't want to hear about it.
She didn't have status, so she didn't have like working status, so she had to finish her schooling in Buffalo. So lived there for 6 months or so. Then she had to do a bridging program in Toronto. That was 9 months, and then she had to go to the Philippines for 7 weeks to do more schooling.
The Philippines part.
And then she got dengue fever. Yeah, that's a whole other story. But
jeez.
So if you didn't believe in soulmates before that story, you might believe like, wow, they must be soulmates because they met in the plains of Uganda. I don't believe in soulmates, but similar to what you said about Brittany, like Rebecca compliments every bit of me, and I feel when I am with her, I feel like my whole self. When we are apart, like I remember feeling this in Buffalo, in Toronto, in the Philippines. I felt like half of me was missing. Like I don't know how to describe it. But like on a cellular level, like it just felt like incomplete. So I guess what I'm trying to say is she completes me.
100%.
Wow,
I affirm
she's
that.
never gonna hear this.
Well, wait till we get to her. Okay, no, this is a great time for me to read you her questions. Okay. All right, let's see. Bring this up.
This is what happens when you post on Instagram. Send in your questions
Yeah,
for the show
send in
because
your
she loves
questions.
Instagram but doesn't love our show.
Okay. This question is worded in such an asinine way. Most fun person in your life and why?
Exactly. See, she's fishing.
She's a real sicko. We love Rebecca. She's a lunatic. There was the second question she asked. First question was, fave thing to do in your free time. Followed up by, who's the most fun person in your life and why? There's no way. No. That's bait.
The answer is our firstborn son. He is so much fun right now. We're just having a ton of fun right now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I think I hope she'd say the same thing.
This is what I'm saying. You shouldn't have answered
Yeah.
it. Whatever you hope is.
Yeah.
Before Brittany and I started dating at the end of 12th grade, we first had a crush on each other in 10th grade when we also went on a mission trip.
Of course.
Where we drove in a 12-seater van from Toronto to Monterrey, Mexico.
What?
Yeah, 3,700 hours or whatever it was.
That is certifiably insane.
And we just sat in the back seat and at
just
one
like
point had our
butts
hands
touching.
on top of each other, never holding hands, but hands on top of each other. And we'll find a photo from that mission trip and put it on the screen now as well. Desperate puppy love. We had already named all 5 of our kids. We were going to have 3 dogs and 2 cats, which we almost reached. We ended up having 2 dogs and 2 cats, and we have 2 children instead of 5. And the names for those children will never be released because they're just such terrible options that never should have been considered. I remember we got home from that mission trip, and she was like, yeah, man, like, we'll just see what happens, which was her way of saying, yeah, this was fun on our exotic trip, but you're not it.
Wow.
I hadn't yet embraced. And that was the beginning of my villain arc.
Hey, look at you now. Okay, back to some church questions. Our third question on today's show. We are a small but multi-generational church with a part-time staff, all of whom wear many hats, so we are very limited on the content we can create. What platforms and types of content do you think we should prioritize when creating?
So the easy answer to this is think of your existing church demographics and then go to the platforms where those demographics already exist. And you want to balance that with think about the demographics that you aspire to see in your church.
Right.
And you might say, well, why would you aspire for different demographics? But look, a lot of our churches are aging. A lot of our churches are aging out to the point where if we don't aim to aspire to bring in more people, the future of the church is uncertain. So you kind of have to balance those two. So maybe this is a multi-generational church, but let's say you're a church with mostly older people. Well, then it would probably make sense to be mostly on Facebook because that's typically where boomers and beyond spend their time online. But then if you are also trying to reach younger people, then you would want to also emphasize a platform like Instagram, maybe even like TikTok, where younger people are existing. And you might say like, oh, like why would that even matter? Like we started working with a church at Social Sermons, and within a month, I think I told this story recently on the podcast, twice people came up to this pastor in his community and said, are you a pastor? I saw you on TikTok. And so these types of things can make a meaningful difference for just people being aware that your church exists. So those are the two things. And the reason this matters now is because social media is stratified, meaning there are generations that spend more time on one platform than others. Back in the day, you were kind of making creative choices on social. Oh, I care more about still posts, or I care more about photography, or I care more about video. And you were choosing a platform based on creative expression. Nowadays, you're choosing it based on demographic. And so you can kind of pick and choose.
That's really fascinating, isn't it? Like in a previous era, social platforms really boasted different types of content and catered to different types of creativity. But now it's like, and we'll probably get into this in a question later on in the show, but like the content, you can literally cross-post it to all of the platforms. We're talking Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. They're short-form vertical videos. But the audience, the type of user on those platforms really varies. So that's we are in a really interesting time.
And things just keep changing.
Yeah.
Thank God we get to keep podcasting.
Yes. Yeah. Next question. Hey guys, my question is, which of the social platforms will become the most worthy of investment over the next year or so? I'm a one-woman team and I can only do so much.
Yeah, so perfect follow-up. This is the new paradigm. Instead of trying to identify the social platform that's most worthy of investment, and this is really a part B to the previous question, now that I'm realizing it, it might make more sense to think about the social format that's the most worthy investment. And for virtually every church, that's going to be short vertical content. Think about all the interviews that we've done recently with churches that have said something to the effect of, we never thought we would blow up this way, but it happened for us. It's because they created vertical content and then posted it to TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, maybe even Twitter may as well. You're already making it, might as well publish it. I don't know if I have that as a firm recommendation for churches just yet, but I've begun doing it on my own Twitter account in the last couple of months as I'm testing and experimenting, seeing how X is evolving. The point here being, you can create and invest in a single content format and then be active on all these platforms and not, in this case, this one-woman team, have to extend yourself further than you already are. You're already going to create that piece of content. And I think that also gives you the liberty to work a little bit harder on that single piece of content because you know this is going to be my one piece across every single platform. And every time you post, it's like a different lottery ticket. And you don't know which platform you're going to blow up on or which platform you're even going to gain traction on. So I was speaking with a church and they're like, yeah, YouTube Shorts for us. I was like, interesting. Another church. It's TikTok for us. Another one. Instagram Reels. Another one. Facebook Reels by far. I don't see a consistent pattern. Facebook Reels is the most undersaturated, and so we often see churches excel there most, but that might also just be because most churches have their largest engaged audience on Facebook because of the age demographics, which gets to the previous question.
Right.
So I think we need to move to this new paradigm. Stop thinking about which platforms I'm going to invest in, and instead think about which format I'm going to invest in.
Yeah, that's so good. Let's keep the questions rolling today. Can you do social media post ideas for small churches again with some new ideas? I feel like I post the same thing over and over. I always hear you saying repeat equals defeat. every time I repeat a post.
Yeah, so I think going back and listening to the interview from last week that we did with Legacy Church, they were great examples of those list type of posts. I think that there's a lot that can be done there. Churches, obviously, social sermons are going to be like the biggest thing for every church, repurposing the content that you already have, the video content, repurposing the creative and spiritual work that your senior leaders have already done. What's great about that content is it's unique to your church. It's your pastor. It's their voice. It's their spiritual effort that they've put in throughout the week to craft the message and then bringing it over to social. That is 100% you. It helps people realize who you are. It's not like anybody else. But these type of list posts, these content posts, I think we have been advocates for them for years, going back to the Story Tape social program from like 2018 when we were like, hey, this is what the thrust of social needs to be, where you can take spiritual practice and biblical exposition and you can put that into content. I think for smaller churches, that's a lot more scalable. Let's say you don't have great video that you're proud of. Well, you can just grab stock footage and then like put the text on top. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And you can do that without having to film something. All you need is a very simple video editor, or you could literally do it within the apps themselves, which might have real benefit to do them within the app itself. I did want to, though, respond to this repeat equals defeat principle, which, because it rhymes, lives on, which is in some ways unfortunate because this is a principle for a bygone era of social. That was for 2018. It was for the social graph era where your content was really only being seen by your existing audience. And the only way to reach more people was to reach the same people more often. So you would need to post as often as you could while keeping the quality as high as you could.
And if you kept posting the same thing, the folks who were seeing it all the time would, of course, become weary of it and engage with your content less. So that's why that sentiment was true and was true for a long time, that just repeating the same stuff over and over is going to lower your proverbial score with the folks who follow you.
Yeah, because if you're trying to stop the scroll and people are seeing something and they recognize it, they're more likely to be like, I've seen that already, and keep going. So everything around the late 2010s was like, how can we basically use unusual designs or use things that people are familiar seeing elsewhere, but now it's on social media. We take like Microsoft 98 designs, but why is this on Instagram? Oh no, I'm reading a Bible verse. They got me again, right?
I actually just saw that resurface from our friends at Saints Church in Edmonton. They were using that kind of old Windows UI in their sermon backdrops and their sermon series. It was nice to see that come back around.
Well, and you saw it, which is kind of a good point here. It's not that this technique is no longer something worth exploring. It just matters so much less. Before, it was like top of mind for what we were doing. Because at the end of the day, stop the scroll is the ultimate objective on social. Attention is the most valuable commodity your church can possess. If you don't have that attention, it doesn't matter how great your message is, no one can hear it. So stopping the scroll is imperative. Back then, you stopped the scroll with visual variety. Repeat equals defeat. That wasn't about posting format. It wasn't about the same message. It was about visual variety. Nowadays, we do that with hooks. We write in those first 3 seconds, we write hooks so that we can get people to pause and say, oh, interesting, like 3 words you should never say to your kids. What is this? And then they watch that 60-second social sermon. The reason this matters less is because, one, with a social sermon, you have a real person communicating. The best way to stop the scroll is a human. It doesn't matter if it's a human that you've seen before. In fact, seeing the same human, you're more likely to stop the scroll than someone you've never seen before. If you see someone come across your social media feed and you recognize them, you're like, oh, that's Samuel L. Jackson. Why is he on my feed? Oh, it's Kevin Hart. Why is he on my feed? You're more likely to stop than if it's someone you don't recognize. The same goes for your pastor. So that visual variety was a great stand-in for those that didn't have video, those that didn't have photography. Well, now that matters less, so that's okay. The other thing is the discovery algorithm element. Your posts are going to have the potential and likelihood, realistic outcome of reaching hundreds of thousands of people if you keep showing up and keep publishing good content. You don't need to kind of trick people into seeing that because they're going to see it and they will never have seen you before. They have no idea who you are whatsoever. These aren't your same audience seeing the same content again and again. So that kind of novel trick doesn't matter as much. It can still work well, but you don't need to obsess over it. Repeat equals defeat now happens in the context of people's faces. That's the best way to stop the scroll. It's always going to be different outfit, different lighting, different expression, and then the hook that we put on the first 3 seconds of the video on social sermons, at least, to kind of get people to just like contextualize what they're seeing.
Yeah, and to this church, and of course all the churches listening, when you find a post format that does work for you, that the algorithm responds to you and says like, we've shown this to a lot of people and they're really enjoying it, that type of content is what you should be repeating. So you should repeat the best. You should continue to test with a bunch of different types of content, and then anything that is not working, proving that it's not working, forget it, forget the rest, right? And so it is actually in this age of discovery algorithm, when you get that feedback from the algorithm that says people like this post, do it again, and do it again until people stop responding. And as you continue to test, you'll find some other content that works well. It really is a new age of social that we're living through right now. Exciting in a lot of ways, disorienting in some ways. But yeah, I hope that's encouraging.
That's really interesting. Okay, so there's another element to this where repeat equals defeat in 2018 because the same people are seeing the same thing over and over again and they're just not paying attention anymore. Nowadays, the repetition of the visual, you could argue, is actually useful because our feeds now are only things we're not used to seeing. Okay, like think about this. Your previous feed, you're like, oh yeah, it's that church again, it's that person again, it's that friend again. We had to find ways to break through that monotony. Monotony is not the issue now. Discovery algorithm, when I see someone I recognize, when I see something I recognize, I'm more likely to stop because it's an anchor in this world of unfamiliarity. I heard one film critic mention this about Oppenheimer.
Okay.
So Oppenheimer's a 3-hour movie. It goes very fast. There's a lot happening. Some people criticize the movie and Nolan, the director, for casting all of these famous people. Like, you know, it's a who's who of famous Hollywood actors. Another critic responded and said, I think that was intentional because this movie moves so quick and it's jumping from era to era, back and forth, no spoilers. Having familiar faces that the audience recognizes serves as a way of anchoring them into, oh, this is that part of the movie. That's Matt Damon.
Right, you see Matt Damon show up.
I know who that is. Oh, okay. It's this part of the movie. And that was just a way of like bringing the audience along. So that's that same kind of idea in these discovery algorithms. It's like you're seeing Oppenheimer for the first time. Like there's a lot happening. Oh, it's my pastor. And I stop. So in that way, you could even make the argument that repetition visually has some merit. And we're seeing that, like you said, Legacy Church, their 3 biblical declarations design is identical across every one of their viral posts because someone liked it so much, even though they didn't know who this church was. Then the algorithm says, hey, let's do the sequel. Let's show it to them again. They're like, oh, I like this again. I recognize it. That's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, we proved that with the content that we put on your Instagram page, right? Like every reel, for the most part, in recent history, last 6 or 12 months, they're all filmed in the same place. They look the same. And I think that serves you well when the algorithm shows your content to someone for the first time, someone who's working in church media, it really connects with them. They like, comment, share, whatever they do on it. When they get served that content again, oh, last time I saw that Brady guy say something about church media, that was really helpful. So I'm going to stick around and watch it this time.
Now, you have a lot more liberty when it's a person. Because if we film here or if we film out there, I am the anchor that people like, I recognize that face. And so you can basically film wherever. If you don't have that face, that's where the design familiarity of that list post by Legacy works because it's identical. Another example of this, my dad was celebrating his 60th birthday a couple weeks ago. So we're celebrating at Copacabana, okay, Brazilian steakhouse. So I drive all the way to Toronto to go here. And one of our servers, I'm like, I immediately recognize him. I'm like, why do I know him? It took me 30 seconds. I was like, this dude is all over my TikTok.
Really?
Yeah.
Slicing meat?
Some fitness influencer.
Okay.
Which is why it's good he works at Brazilian Steakhouse.
Okay, we were at the Copacabana actually here in the Falls. Does your dad know that there's one here in the Falls?
Yeah, but they all live in the city, so
Yeah,
I was
that's
like, we have 2. Come, we pick your
Yeah.
Braza or Copacabana.
But we were at the Copacabana and I was watching these guys carrying these like swords with stacks of meat on them and with the tray underneath. And I thought, like, you actually have to be really fit to be able to do that all night.
Yeah, he was a monster, much bigger in person than he looked on TikTok. So that was the familiarity of me seeing his face, so much so that I recognized him in real life, even though I'd really only seen him from the shoulders up on TikTok.
Yeah. Did you say, hey, I see you on TikTok?
No, so I thought about it. I don't really like his videos, and I haven't seen them in a long time, which is what's so fascinating because I still recognized him. I cannot remember the last time I saw one of his videos. But local geographic component of algorithms, right? This is one of those crazy things you see all the time on TikTok. You're like, wait, you're a Canadian?
Yeah.
There's this such local element, which is so advantageous for us as churches, local organizations. I said, one, like I could encourage him, be like, hey man, I love your content. I was like, but that's not true.
Right.
So then what do I say? Hey man, I recognize you from TikTok.
And it's like,
That's fine.
yeah.
So I decided against it.
Yeah.
Shouts to my dad. You know, you mentioned Cairo to Cape Town. He was in Cairo a couple days ago on his layover, headed
Right.
to China.
Did they make it out of the airport?
Yeah, they made it to their transfer hotel.
Right.
They landed in Beijing, and now they're off to Harbin, hometown of his new wife, Erin. So
They're going to be there for a few weeks.
yeah, praise God on their travels.
Yeah.
And safe travels. I think Dad is going to be surrounded by a lot of Mandarin speakers, and he is not one of them.
Yeah.
Harbin, China, where she's from, ice castle capital of the world. If you've ever seen Frozen, it's like real life Frozen. They have this ice festival, and it's like Elsa's castle has got nothing on these ice castles.
Would have never guessed.
China. Who knows what they're up to?
I can't wait. They're reforesting. We learned that today.
We did.
I can't wait to hear what your dad has to say about his trip when he gets home. We're flying through these questions. Question 6. I am always looking forward to the videos. When you had them in 2019, I'd watch while I eat, so it feels like we're all hanging out.
That's what we're here for.
Here's the question. Does Instagram grid aesthetic matter still? I've gotten feedback from some of my staff that my social sermons fill up our Instagram grid, and it looks like our pastor is egocentric since the grid is all stills of him. So I've resulted to posting 5 to 6 photos of families at our weekend services each week in addition to the social sermons to keep the grid looking family oriented. That's been a lot of caption writing, and it's tough to have that many new pictures weekly. I've considered not posting reels to our grid, but the Reels tab only. Is this necessary to worry about?
Yeah, so when we work with churches at Social Sermons, we send 3 pieces of content a week. 2 sermon clips, pastor preaching, and 1 quote video. Quote reel, or still, depending on what the church requests, that we specifically don't include anyone's face. So that if you went to the grid and this is all the church posted, which we encourage supplemental posting, of course, but the whole point of Social Sermons is if you did nothing at all, you'd be set on social media. 2 out of every 3 posts would be pastor's face or speaker's face. 1 would be not. And to me, that feels pretty congruent to most church services, where the sermon is the biggest portion, and then you're having maybe worship on top of that. So to me, in person then is congruent with online. That is the baseline. That's what we want. If you want something different, ask yourself why. And then maybe consider why in person is not different than online. But that aside, does the grid matter? So the grid does not matter. It can be difficult for us as creatives to grasp that because we care about it, and everyone listening and watching this cares about it. But this audience is not your church. People in church don't care. So long as the grid is clear at what it's like, hey, this is this post. And you know what, frankly, I've come across this with some churches where they have these beautiful grids. And then I click on it.
The covers have nothing to do with the video.
Right,
Yeah.
which I actually find a little bit challenging. And I don't think I'd recommend that, even though like the grid is this beautiful mosaic of, well, it's not even mosaic, it's like a singular image, or it's like this purposeful pattern that they've curated. But then I don't know what the posts are. And then I'm really only going off of like the views or the likes. What's this church's most popular post? Like, what are they all about? What are they doing that's resonating with the world? Now, with that being said, I can imagine Gen Z, Gen Alpha, growing up on social media and being so much more aware of creativity, where something like this matters to the general population. And it's just something that is, you do naturally. My wife and I are going to Dubai in February. And yesterday we were in the hot tub with our daughter, just chilling, And I was like, oh, we should like do that thing that couples do where we plan out our outfits and like matchy match. And she's like, that's fun. Let's do that. See, feminine energy. And then I was like, you know what we should also do though? We should like plan how to pose. Cause like all we do is like the classic, like millennial, like, oh, hey, it's us. Arms around each other and nothing else. I was like, there's entire TikToks dedicated to like how couples should pose in pictures. And I was like, this matters because our kids are not gonna have to learn this. They're just gonna do it. Like our generation didn't learn to dance, but the other generations, they just do it when they're kids. And so they're going to have it. In the same way that I had social media skills that my senior leaders said, hey, just do it because it was familiar to me. I was like, I don't want our kids to be like, oh my goodness, look at these terrible, like they're going to think we were not like attractive because we didn't know how to pose. So I was like, we got to figure out how to pose. It's that same idea applied here in that there could be a future where the grid matters because that type of creativity is so like understood by everyone. But it's so low on the priority list right now. I think people tend to obsess over it and it takes precedent and kind of like ends up higher on the priority list than it should to the degree where it might actually like be negative, like that church's account I was just referencing, which I've seen many times. Like the grid is so beautiful, but like I have no idea what the post is even about.
Yeah. I think we can prove this to be true by just doing some like self-evaluation of how we interact with our favorite accounts online. You know, like when I think about my grid and the covers I put on Reels, I'm thinking, well, what happens when like someone finds their way to my profile from a piece of content, like they want to dig in more, like it should really be clear to them on my grid, like what all these videos are about. But when and I'm a creative, so I care about that. But when I think about how I actually interact with people online, like I spend very little time on the grids of creators that I really like.
And if you do go there, it's because I want to see some posts.
Right.
And so if I can't see it, because it's all like this beautiful.
Yeah, it's like I find them in the For You page, whether on Reels or TikTok. I interact with their content. It tells the algorithm I like their stuff. And then I end up just seeing more of their stuff. Like I spend the path to getting from a post to the grid is just, for me at least, the way I work online, far less frequent than it used to be. A lot of my favorite creators online, I'm not sure I've ever been to their profile to check out their grid. So that's just the state of things where we currently are. But I do agree that as we know, like our social profiles, they evolve so much over time as the platforms and the algorithms and our behaviors do, that there's likely a time and place where how we present our grids maybe matters a little bit more than it does right now.
And if you do care about it, go for it.
Yeah.
If you have the time. But don't do it to the detriment of like people discovering your content on your grid. Don't purposefully use a cover that has nothing to do with the actual video itself so that it matches with the other videos and creates this overall image. We're all
because 9 posts from now, it's not going to be above the fold when people land on your grid. It's going to be buried down, you know?
Yeah. So it's a fun, like, creative exercise that doesn't really lend itself to any type of effectiveness. And at the end of the day, we care about effectiveness most. I also care. Let's take a quick break. Get
Because
some
it's
water.
hot in here?
It's really hot. Every time you go to Alex's camera, I'm like wiping my brow. It's so hot, and this studio doesn't have great ventilation, which has its pros and cons. Yeah. Right now, only cons. We're going to get a quick drink. We're going to come back with the return of the draft segment.
Yes.
We did this with the best Hillsong United tracks, drafting the ultimate set list. I think consensus between Alex and I was that Alex came out on top.
A slim margin, but I took the victory.
Okay, very gracious of you. I love that. We are today drafting the ultimate Christian festival.
Yeah.
Specifically like Christian rock. So we're not including worship.
Right.
We're not including Christian hip hop. This is like specifically Christian rock. And it's, again, from our era of life.
Yes.
So we're going to be back with that in just a moment. Okay, we are back. Got me some hydration here as we begin this draft. Rules for the Christian Rock Festival draft. The goal is to draft the best side stage at your Christian festival of choice.
We grew up going to a festival called Kingdom Bound.
We're Northeast boys. We didn't hit Cornerstone.
Right. And it was a great Christian. It probably still is. I don't know. I haven't been there in 15 years.
Hosted at Darien Lake, New York.
Six Flags. We love it. And the side stage, as we affectionately call it, in the shadow of the Superman roller coaster, is where, I don't know, you'd get like Michael W. Smith he's not even setting foot on that side of the park.
He doesn't even know what Man of Steel is.
That's right. But the bands with the cult followings, that's where, if a mosh pit's going to break out, it's at the side stage. And this is where you and I grew up. We probably crossed paths so many times at this festival.
So many times.
And we're going to put together the best side stage festival known to man or womankind.
Yes, and there are 30 bands here in this list, and we are each going to draft 10. And we're trying to create the best single day at the side stage where you're going to get your Houghton College t-shirt because every year they're giving you a new one. I remember there was this one, it was just a black and white Houghton College one, Houghton kind of vertically on the side. I think I had 16 of those tees. We just kept going and putting in new names to get new free t-shirts. And it was a great time. So we're going to flip this coin, same coin from the last draft. On one side, we have a knight.
Right.
And on the other side, we have a lion standing up with a crown.
That's right. And I picked last time, so you get the pick this time.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. Lion or knight?
And then the winner gets the first pick.
Yes.
Okay.
You get the choice. We're going to choose the first pick. You ready?
Lion standing up with a crown.
It's a lion standing up with a crown.
Oh,
You know, I like the added level of intrigue in this draft because, like you said, 30 picks. We each get 10, which means there are going to be 10 undrafted selections just left here for the dogs.
Okay.
And it's been 4 weeks since our last draft. Relationally, we have just recovered. We have just repaired the wounds from that draft. So
I'm not stalling, but we need to read all 30 picks out
Yes,
before we
we
draft.
do,
So
yes.
please go ahead while I don't look
yeah.
at the pick I'm going to make.
from the top, I can't. Oh, yeah. No, we did talk about leaving these two on here. From the top, Toby Mac. It was the first one that came to both of our minds. Group 1 crew, Skillet, Red, 1,000-Foot Crutch with a K, Pillar, Disciple, Fireflight, FM Static, The Supertones, 5 Iron Frenzy, Run Kid Run, Stellar Cart, Hawk Nelson, Reliant K, Family Force 5, House of Heroes, The Classic Crime, The Almost, Under Oath, Anberlin, May, Switchfoot, the other heavy hitter, Emery, Me Without You, MXPX, The Almost, again, Project 86, FM Static, again, Run Kid Run, again, what's happening? Manifest,
there's
and
doubles
Need to
on
Breathe.
here?
There's a couple doubles.
Oh,
I don't know how that happened.
okay.
So there's about 27 picks.
Okay, so when we remove one Run Kid Run,
Yes,
hypothetically,
yes.
we remove both. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Number 1 overall pick. So I'm thinking this is my headliner. You got to pick your headliner right
This
off
is the
the top.
last show of the day.
There's
Yeah.
really only 2, maybe 3 on here. And I think I would have been fine with either. And I think I would have preferred you going first. But I can't be a coward. And so as much as this specific band
I'm so nervous.
didn't resonate with me, with the number 1 overall pick, I am drafting Switchfoot.
I mean, I can't do
Is that-
anything but respect.
Is that who you wanted me to not draft?
I mean, that's maybe we'll find that out later on.
Tell me that's who you wanted number 1.
I can't tell you much beyond the fact that Switchfoot, personally, one of my favorite all-time bands, just probably of all these bands, the most impressive catalog of music over 20, maybe 30 years at this point. But a no doubter, you had to select Switchfoot with the overall number 1 pick.
And you know, that's a really good point because Switchfoot to me was not like one of the bands that was in my rotation the most as a listener. But the catalog, like you said, is so deep that it resonates with everyone. And that's what I want from a headliner, right? The final show of the day. What are we going to listen to? We might kick it off with Meant to Live. That's Meant to Live, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh Gravity, a favorite of mine. High Pace. Awakening, also from the Oh Gravity album. Awakening. Big fan. That was one of my favorites. Oh, let me slow it down for a bit. Ever heard of Narnia? This Is Home.
Wow.
We love that. Everyone's favorite. Dare You to Move. Everyone's crying now. Enough to Let Me Go. Oh, do you love me enough? Time to pick it back up. We'll go to Mess of Me. And closing out with one of my favorite songs of all time, the title
Mess of
track.
Me has such a hard guitar riff.
It really does. Yeah. It's just fuzz.
Yeah.
And then we'll close it out with Hello Hurricane, one of my favorite songs
Yes.
of all time. And great way to send home everybody happy.
My aforementioned broken leg in this episode, I saw Switchfoot on the Hello Hurricane tour with the broken leg. So I stood for 3 hours on crutches alongside my dad, and they played the Hello Hurricane record front to back to open that concert, then brief intermission, and then came out and played another 20 songs. It was awesome. I think it was the first concert I can remember seeing a band play record front to back. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
We listened to Hello Hurricane front to back, driving through the Icelandic highlands in the middle of nowhere,
We actually
singing our
listened
guts
to
out.
a few of these bands on that trip.
We really did.
Here's the thing about a festival like this is the headliner, the last show of the night, usually brings the most people, like Switchfoot is going to be one of the most commonly known names at the festival.
Yeah.
Another name on this list, for example, that I'm not going to pick right now.
Wow.
Need to Breathe, for example. That would be a band that's like, okay, everyone knows Need to Breathe. We're coming. Mm-hmm. With my first overall pick, that's going to be the headliner,
You're
last
going
show
headliner.
of my night. I'm choosing a band that strikes such a deep emotional chord with its following. I mentioned cult followings earlier. The cult following that's going to draw this band to this final spot. The people who are coming, they're going to enjoy Need to Breathe. They're going to enjoy the other bands that are playing in this slots previous, but they're coming to see May.
What?
They feel so strongly about this music, as I do and as you do, that they will endure the entire afternoon through all the other bands that are good bands. But May is bringing them into the depth of the night, and when they start with that keyboard note to begin, exactly, all of the day's longing have come to a head in that single moment of catharsis. It all pays off for everyone who comes to my Christian Rock Festival to see May perform at the 9:00 time slot on the side stage.
This is revealing in a number of ways. Way number one, Alex is cutthroat because he knows that my favorite album by far on this entire list from any artist is The Everglow by May. A perfect 10 out of 10, no skips, front to back concept album of pure ecstasy that we also listened to on that same drive in the Icelandic highlands. It reveals something else. This man has no idea what he's doing in this draft because he just, with the first overall pick, selected a band with one good record in the catalog.
But that's what everyone's coming for.
No one is coming for them.
Yeah.
No one likes May. Only us. This is a terrible first overall pick. I know you're trying to hurt me, but if anything, you're revealing your ignorance.
I have 9 other picks. Like,
your headliner, everyone's asleep for. That's a great album to listen to, and you're just vibing. It's not a headliner end the night. There's no variance.
It's when the set list comes out, or the festival listing comes out, people can't believe to see those 3 letters at the top.
They definitely cannot believe it's closing the night with May.
No one else had the courage to put May in. I've been waiting to see May play us into the twilight. They've been waiting.
Okay.
And I had the courage.
There is 2 banging tracks on that album. Banging as in that type of energy.
Yes.
Suspension and the one before Suspension, right after the intro.
Yeah.
So you have to play the concept album front to back.
Of course.
So to be clear, your headliner is a concept album being played front to back.
And you are going to that festival.
Yeah, I am, because I'm weird.
That's right. And so are the people listening to this show.
Wow. Okay, so for context, when I started off this, I was really worried. There were 2 obviously big names.
Yeah.
And I was worried that, I knew I would take one and he would take another. And I didn't want to regret which one I took. Never in my wildest dreams would I have anticipated this interesting human being swerving. I had a lot of thoughts about where he might go as he started saying that. Never in a million years. So I will gladly maybe even replace my headliner with the secondary one, depending on my audience, and draft Toby Mac with the number 3 overall pick. And here I'm about to introduce the first, perhaps underhanded tactic that I will be referring and returning to again and again in this draft. Because one of the songs that Toby Mac is going to be playing is a song that he is not a featured artist on Spotify. He is one of the 2 artists. The second artist being Grits. Ooh, ah.
Yeah.
That's on this because he is a full credited artist. We're going to play Made to Love. He's going to play Ignition.
What about Extreme Days? We're living in extreme days.
Possibly, because he's going to have 18 encores.
Yeah.
You're going to, how many encores are you going to have? 0, because once the concept album is done, the show is done. Oh, come back out and play something from the Singularity. That's not happening. We're going to do Boomin' out your stereo system. This goes out to everyone listening. We're going to play No Ordinary Love. Doodly-doodly. And it is hype. You know why I know it's hype? Because Toby Mac didn't play the side stage at Kingdom Bound. He played the main stage.
He did.
And it was lit. I now have a double headliner people are like, "Oh, great, we got to. When is the ocean coming up? We've been come on, get to it, May."
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
I was hoping you were going to take Toby Mac with one of your picks. Admittedly, Toby Mac on the main stage is what I looked forward to at Kingdom Bound. It's where I
You're a
found
fan?
myself a huge fan. I grew up as a big DC Talk fan, big fan of Toby Mac. His stage presence at Kingdom Bound, almost second to none. He's got like choreographed dancers, guitar players, the whole thing.
He brings the whole diverse city. There's hundreds of people up there.
I'm so glad you brought that up because what I think he brings to the environment is a bit of a younger audience, a bit of a more juvenile spirit, if you will.
The man's 65.
He is now, yes.
He was 50 then. He was twice the age.
It's so
of
funny because I remember then a topic of conversation like, can you believe he's 55? Yeah.
I remember all my friends' parents coming to the show because they were like, "Yeah, this guy was in another band."
I know, but I'm trying to craft my
I'm telling you, he doesn't know what he's doing.
my festival towards a more mature, sophisticated palette of music. And so for my second pick, I'm going with Need to Breathe. Need to Breathe, a band that could play songs from their 2005 catalog, 2010 catalog, 2015, 2020, 22 catalog, if you will. I guess this mythical festival is set in present day, so they get to play all the way up to right now. Not too dissimilar from Switchfoot, a band with a catalog of such depth and breadth, if you will.
Yeah, I will.
That I think they just hit all the marks for me. Resonate with so many people. Highs of the show, lows of the show, nostalgia, hope. So my number 2 overall pick, I'm going with Need to Breathe.
So this is really challenging for me because I added Need to Breathe this morning, hoping that he wouldn't realize that I added them to the list.
But then you made me read it out loud.
Need to Breathe is my wife and I's favorite artist, if we had to choose. And it is a travesty that I did not get to draft them.
That wasn't a petty pick. I feel
like you're 2 for 2 on petty picks.
And I'm happy to admit when they are. May was one of them.
What songs might Need to Breathe play? Because I had prepared an entire set list.
How One Way was a petty pick in the former draft.
You admit it. It was a petty pick.
Yes, it was a strategy.
How about you play your game and let me play mine, okay?
But this was not.
This is the other thing you need to know about Alex. Alex has a brother who is 10 years his senior.
Yeah.
Alex is the second born in the family. I'm the firstborn. So we grew up, despite Alex being 2 years younger than me, listening to different eras of music. There are some bands on here that are no longer on here.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like the Supertones.
Yeah.
MXPX. Those were kind of before my time. They should have been before Alex's time, but because his brother was listening to them, he was brought into that world. And so I'm pretty confident I can like play my game and draft the teams that I want to create the best roster. But then the Need to Breathe pick, that really
I think deeper into this draft, what you're saying is going to be proven true. You and I are going to depart. You're going to choose some winners, and I'm going to choose some that I'm personally fond of, thanks to my taste in music that was formed a lot by my brother. I think I'm right about that.
Now I am a little bit worried, and I don't want to make the wrong step here, but I think I have to make a personal choice for me. And the nice thing was, I was confident that I was going to be able to smuggle in Switchfoot, no matter how I drafted, because I was going to prioritize this band, and that is satisfying the CRTC Canadian quotient, Mr. Thiessen, Come On Down, Reliant K.
Yeah.
Reliant K was more formative to me than any other band on this list. They actually have the deepest catalog of anyone on this list. My second-born daughter is named after the Sadie Hawkins dance song, in part. We are going to play that song. We're going to play Be My Escape. We're going to avoid, forget, and not slow down, the 2009 record where Matthew had to go into the Great White North after his engagement fell through and wrote a very, very profound but kind of sad album. We might just play 2004's banger, no skips, front to back. But no matter what we end up doing, we are going to close down the Reliant K set. There will be no encore. Heck, this could be the final. Wow. I just realized something profound. Toby Mac will not be the headliner. Switchfoot will be the headliner. And on the final song of the day, We're not going to end on a banger. This is not one way with Hillsong United. Switchfoot is going to invite Reliant K back out. And then they will play the singular greatest song that any band on this entire list ever recorded, Deathbed by Reliant K.
See, that's kind of what I had in mind with May. Maybe like a Tooth and Nail encore where they invite a bunch, because so many of these artists are Tooth and Nail artists. They invite a bunch of Tooth and Nail artists onto the stage after they play their concept record front to back, and then nobody knows the rest of the songs. That's kind of what I maybe imagined in my mind.
Let me tell you about the song Deathbed. It's the closer track off of 5 Score and 7 years ago. It is 11 minutes long, and it is unlike any other song that Reliant K ever did. It tracks the life of a man from an early difficult life to his deathbed where he finds Jesus. And the final part of the song is sung by both Matthew Thiessen and, not a huge Switchfoot fan, what's the lead singer's name? I'm forgetting now. John Foreman. John Foreman sings as God, welcoming the man who's dying in deathbed to heaven. So we are going to end my show at the literal gates of heaven.
Wow.
As Switchfoot, who closed out, welcomes out Reliant K, and then they sing together back and forth at each other. And I defy you
Yeah, that's poetic.
to even consider something more profound.
I'm in big trouble after you've painted that picture. We're into the number 3 pick, and so now I'm thinking about like how a festival works, and because pretty much we're picking an order from end of the night backwards at this point. So far we have.
Yeah.
Are pretty close. And I'm thinking about how a festival works and thinking like, who is playing mid to late afternoon? And I have a handful of bands here that would go together.
Oh yeah, that's
in
good.
A couple different streams, and I would like to have a couple picks back to back, which actually would be really helpful. But for my third pick, I'm going to lean a little bit on the heavy side. And I'm going to draft Anne Boleyn.
It hurts, but it's a great pick.
That's a tough pick. That's not even a tough pick because I know you would want it too, but it's a tough pick. Like, there's a handful of bands.
Yeah, why don't you reconsider and take the other band you're thinking of? Because I don't want them, and you could take them, and we'd both be happy.
Anne Boleyn was a band on here that I listened to. I listened to more than a lot of these bands.
Do you hear this, people? His heart isn't in this. He's just making... Go ahead.
And it was one of those bands where my dad and I listened to a lot of music together, and some of the music that I would play, we listened and we drove a lot together, and he would always let me be the DJ. I could play usually whatever I wanted. And some of the music, like, even some bands on here like Under Oath and Emery, or a band that's not on here like August Burns Red, that stuff is just a little bit too heavy for my dad's preference. He'd listen with me, but it wasn't for him. Anne Boleyn was pretty close to the threshold of that. Like this, we're talking like heavy, like real rock and roll music here.
Yeah.
But the artistry, the lyricism always connected with my dad. Like he was legitimately I'd catch him listening to these songs on his own. And I've actually never had the privilege to see Anne Boleyn live in concert. And I'm not the biggest fan of the music they're making right now. So now in my adulthood, like I could go if I wanted to, but I just don't feel the same way.
Yeah.
But 2008, if Anne Boleyn was hitting the stage, I would do whatever I could to find myself in the center of that little mosh pit on the side stage in the shadow of the Man of Steel.
See, the difference is I was in the mosh pit for Anne Boleyn as a true fan with a blue streak painted in my hair. I was wearing a zip-up. The color of the zip-up was almost identical to Alex's. Do you know what the zip-up said? The Everglow by May.
I'm so sorry.
So many great songs that Anne Boleyn can play across their two... Well, they're not quite no skips. Not quite, but so close. Never Take Friendship Personal, followed by Cities, are almost no skips. But we all know that
Cities was no skips for me.
Okay, fair. You know what? If you want to tell me Cities is no skips, I'm listening. Yeah. I don't think it quite reaches the pinnacle that Never take friendship personal
Yeah.
bit. But so long as we're getting the feel good drag, it don't matter what else. I mean, kind of dark subject matter for the Christian audience. But hey, great pick. Now, for me, definitely Amberlynn and Need to Breathe, cards on the table. Were both bands that I really wanted to draft. And there are a lot of bands on here that I'll be glad to draft, but I'm not like pining for. And I was hopeful that you would stay true to yourself and draft for you and not draft against me.
Yeah.
But again, playing the opponent, I don't think you have me though today. I think I'm in a different stratosphere. I think I'm in a different bag.
I'm feeling at a disadvantage right now.
And the band that I'm about to draft right now, if you're looking at my set currently, I mean, it's just 3 straight powerhouses. We've got Reliant K, into Toby Mac, into Switchfoot, ending on Deathbed. So now you might ask yourself, that's a lot of nice rock. And Toby Mac is there for like the older audience. As much as Alex tried to discount the 55-year-old man as too immature, that was an interesting take. All the parents are coming to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That being said,
My dad was there.
They put him on the main stage for a reason.
Yeah.
The guy could pull. We need some absolute debauchery, head smashing goodness. So break out the styrofoam neon fists, because Family Force 5 is about to take the stage.
Wow.
We've got Love Addict from the 100% No Skip album. We have Fever. We have Dance or Die. We have Country Gentleman. I can recite it word for word to this day. Supersonic, Drama Queen, which I may or may not have weaponized the lyrics against certain women in my youth group. And for my second smuggle of the day, an artist that you might say, why is he not on this list? He was a huge artist for that time and that day. Well, wasn't really a rocker. But when they play Cray Button and they bring the featured artist to the stage and Lecrae steps out and you realize Brady smuggled Lecrae via Family Force 5. He's operating on a different level.
Wow.
Lecrae is here.
I did not see that coming.
Of course you didn't. Too worried trying to be petty with me, but I was ahead of the game.
That's a really good pick. So that's your 4th pick. And so for my 4th pick, I do want to stick. Like I said, I'm curating an experience here.
Are you?
Yep. I want to pair another heavy band alongside Amberlynn to bring us into Amberlynn.
Okay.
Because I want to appease the same groups of people for a prolonged period of time, and you'll see that with my next 2 picks that follow this one. So we're talking. I've got my next 3 picks lined up. And I'm actually pretty confident that you're not going to have anything to do with them.
I think you're right about that.
And so, I've got 2 choices here. And I'm going to go with Under Oath into Amberlynn. My other choice was Emery, and I don't think either of those choices would have been wrong.
You got Under Oath opening before Amberlynn?
Into Amberlynn, yeah.
Under Oath would never accept that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be true.
Are you confident flipping that order? You all right with that?
We'll see how the rest of the night goes.
Okay.
But Under Oath with my next pick.
Great pick.
For some folks listening to the show, they may not be as familiar with the heavier stuff on this list. I know you and I both appreciated the heavy stuff. I think I may have listened to a little bit more heavy stuff than you did. But I mean, Under Oath, Amberlynn, Emery, all these bands I was listening to at the same, I don't know what it was, like teenage angst or whatever, but I'm listening to all of this music at the same time in my life. And it was kind of all speaking to the same thing. And just to see those guys up there playing the music. Maybe let's take 2010 version of Under Oath and not the current version of Under Oath where they're yelling obscenities into the microphone.
See how it's funny how you already have to change your
This
picks.
is a Christian festival after all, but
So one of the mistakes that I knew you were going to make is you'd not be able to see through your internal misogyny.
yeah.
And I knew that you were going to go either old bands that, frankly, no one cares about anymore. Apologies, respectfully. Or you'd go heavy. And guess who would show up? People like you. what I'm curating here, and you've already kind of started to backtrack.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to make everything all the same, and it's a theme. No. You've been painted into a corner, and you're justifying bad pick after bad pick. What you don't have is anything to bring the ladies.
I'm realizing this now.
Right?
That you bring it up. Yep.
And now you've realized that 50% of your audience, if we're being honest, in a youth group, more than 50% are no longer showing up because do they want to hear Under Oath?
Yeah.
Do they want to hear Amber Lynn sing their most famous song, a song that literally says, why is this woman a terrible person? She cheated and it's all her fault and the man has no responsibility in that relationship whatsoever. Interesting choice. However, am going to bring in what I am confident 100% is a favorite of the ladies. Another band that had a no skips album, back to front, Smile. It's the end of the world. Bring on the Canadian quotient. Again, it's Hawk Nelson.
Yeah.
If there was a band that was loved more by the ladies in my youth group than Hawk Nelson, I don't know which one it was. We're going to play the one thing I have left. We're going to play California. Bear, nair, 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 nair. You don't know anything about that. We're going to play Everything You Ever Wanted. And all the ladies are going to belt it out. And guess who else is? Me. Interestingly, you said that I listen to the heavy stuff. I listen to the heavy stuff a lot less compared to the pop punk.
Yeah.
Love the pop punk. We're going to play Zero, and it's going to be emotional. And we're going to play Hello, because it's fun.
Yeah. I never saw Hawk Nelson at Kingdom Bound. I did see them at Acquire the Fire.
ATF.
Yep. In Hamilton. Is that John Steingard?
Yeah, that sounds right. Jon.
How do you feel about him no longer following the Lord? Think about that about your Christian festival? Maybe.
Well, they might be performing under the name Hawk Nelson, but when your frontman is gone, you're not really Hawk Nelson anymore. Mr. Nelson is gone.
True.
So, that's a different band.
Yeah.
That's different than my band turning their backs on the Lord. Let's be honest. Every single one of these bands
turn
turn their backs on the Lord.
It's true. Yeah.
That's different than them turning their backs on the Lord and then being like, this is still us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
That, at least John had the Canadian respect to just be like, you know what? I'm not going to be a part of this anymore because I don't want to hurt my friends.
That's right.
Under Oath, they just all exploded internally. Hawk Nelson has an entire song dedicated to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Can we talk about Hello Kelly for a second? Not on this list.
I would love to.
But another little niche Canadian band that deserves a spot on both of our lists. But there'd be 13 people there.
Oh,
and
I was all 13.
Yeah.
And I knew every song, front to back, every lyric. I had a bright blue Hello Kelly shirt that I was still wearing at the beginning years of Pro Church Tools. And, fledgling little band, would get a record deal, couldn't quite break through, doing indie stuff. I'm surprised that you liked them because they're about as girly pop as you can get.
Yeah. I saw them at Budweiser stage, side stage at the Budweiser stage the day that we also saw Hillsong.
Yes.
And I saw them at this little church in Welland.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right, how many picks are we in at this point?
That was your fifth?
Okay, we're halfway through. Oh, wow.
I feel like I'm missing one of yours.
All right, Hawk Nelson, into Family Force 5, into Reliant K, into Toby Mac, into Switchfoot.
Yeah. So
already this festival sold out. It's amazing.
This is my fifth pick. This is where my festival is going to take a turn. So we've got May closing out the evening, Need to Breathe Before Then, Under Oath and Amber Lynn for the heavy section.
You have May.
This is my festival. For my fifth pick, I can attribute this. I can shout out my brother. I can attribute my affinity for this band and this style of music.
Very good.
I'm so happy to talk about the style of music. The very niche sliver of Christian ska music, which the older I get, the more ridiculous this gets. And there are two of these bands on here that are Christian ska. There is a whole other group that no one's ever heard of. The Insiders, the W's, like just Insiders with a Z, by the way. Their records Scalleluja and Scalleluja 2. It's ridiculous.
Paving the way.
Paving
the way. Family Force 5 has a lot of ska elements
Sure.
that are being influenced by those types of artists.
So I'm going to go with I'm gonna go with Five Iron Frenzy.
Five
with my
Iron
fifth
Frenzy.
pick. I'm looking at the two ska bands here: the OC Supertones, and Five Iron Frenzy.
Reliant K, hugely influenced by Five Iron Frenzy.
Yeah, and man, when I was a kid, again, a huge catalog of music. We talked about Five Iron Frenzy recently on the show when we were talking about hidden tracks. One of my favorite things about spinning a Five Iron Frenzy compact disc was waiting for the hidden track at the end. So you get the final song, which is usually like the one that just breaks you open because they're comedic. Some of their songs are comedic. Get to the last song they play every new day, and then you sit there for 4.5 minutes of silence waiting for a hidden track, and they usually didn't disappoint. So we're into the ska section of my festival now with the fifth pick, Five Iron Frenzy.
Okay, tough pick for me here. I in no way ever anticipated this band not being picked at this point. So much so that I feel compelled that I must take them. I am a little bit worried that their front man might possibly break into a culture war diatribe. So there will have to be something in the contract that we're here to listen to music, play the hits, and then if you want to talk to people about your extreme politics on the side, not so extreme, depending on where you are in the spectrum, that's fine.
Yep.
But on the stage...
Yep. Just play the hits.
Just play the hits.
Just throw up your rock fist. Just play the hits.
Wait, what?
It's not Thousand Foot Crutch?
What's wrong with Trevor?
I thought one of those guys was like, what band are you choosing?
I'm choosing Skillet.
Oh, maybe I'm getting confused.
With the front man, John Cooper.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm getting confused. Yeah.
What's wrong with Trevor?
Sorry, no, I thought Trevor was the front man from Skillet.
This is what I mean, people.
Yeah.
Okay. Comatose, 2006 album. Just, again, no skips, front to back. Here's the thing about Skillet. Really only one great album. The stuff before, hey, Alien Youth Collide, yeah, there's some stuff there, but it's uneven. The stuff after was really just trying to recapture the glory that was Comatose. Awake has the tracks with the most plays. Hero, Monster. Monster is an abomination. I feel like a monster. Come on. Stop it. Awake and Alive. Still slaps. Checked in with that this morning. Comatose. Let me just read out this track list. Rebirthing. You know that?
See, Skillet
This is
alongside Thousand Foot Crutch were two bands that like at a festival, or I've seen them both at Acquire the Fire, would like listen to the music and enjoy it, but I'm not going home and spinning their records regularly. I would get like the one Skillet song a year on the Tooth and Nail compilation record.
Okay.
But yeah, not for me.
Bringing out something that does not exist on the rest of my track so far. We're bringing out the strings. Rebirthing, Comatose. Oh, The Last Night. The Older I Get. Wow.
Did they have a female drummer?
They did.
Okay.
And a female vocalist.
Okay.
And so again, we're working to all...
Right, yes.
Uh-huh.
Set list of inclusion. Yes.
That's right. But,
yes.
I mean, it's fascinating that you can observe that in someone else's when
Right.
you continually deny it in your own life. Skillet at the number like 11 pick, just hanging out there. Like, I mean, I again, please, John, play the hits. If you want to talk about the Lord, that's great.
Yeah.
So long as it's not in the context of, we got to take our nation back.
Yeah. Not the time and the place. Not at this festival. Okay, you know where I'm going, and I'm unashamed about it. I don't need to spend too much time on elaborating why. But I'm sticking in the ska genre. I'm going to take the OC Supertones with it was a sixth pick. Again, curating an experience. If there's going to be a ska section in the festival, I want these two bands together. They were closely aligned. They were playing music at the same time. You'd often see them sharing a stage together. For those of us who grew up listening to them in the early 2000s, this is the nostalgic draw of the festival. So with my sixth pick, the OC Supertones.
Okay, so one missing part of my my lineup right now is I don't have anything that's really heavy. Skillet is kind of like heavy adjacent, but they're heavy for people that don't like heavy music.
Right, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying these people are heavy per se, but one of my favorite artists remaining on the list, another artist with an album that is a front to back banger. And that band is the Seattle-based Classic Crime. The Classic Crime, some of their most popular songs, The Fight and The Coldest Heart, come on the scene, burst on the scene, those songs, those are pretty heavy. But the Silver Chord album, 2008, front to back, no skips, Closer Than We Think, wow, God in Drugs, Salt in the Snow, Just a Man, Grave Digging. Fun fact, Grave Digging, the inspiration for me continually referring to any sermon series the church calls as Grave Digger. Classic Crime, love it. Great opening band because they're not as well known as they should be for the quality of their music. And so you're not just putting up someone who's like a one-hit wonder, which is often like you kind of get early because, I want people to come for that one song. And they're just waiting for that one song. Wait, it's the final song they play there. No, this is great.
Wow. It's interesting in this draft that there's going to be some bands left undrafted. It's really influencing how I look at the latter half of this list. You've had 7 picks. I've picked 6. So with my 7th pick, I'm going to pick a band that was playing at the same time as Five Iron Frenzy and the OC Supertones. Also a Tooth and Nail artist, but pushing the boundary of like, what is a Christian band? They're the type of band that would say we're not a Christian band, we're Christians who are in a band. But I also wonder if they would even say that. This band is called MXPX, and it's my first punk selection. To be fair, just about the only punk music I ever listened to. But they have a record. It's a covers record, and I don't even know what it's called. If it's just called Covers, but they do a cover of Summer of '69 that is so good.
Wow, leading off the strength of an artist by the fact that they cover other artists.
Yeah, but there's space for that.
Impressive.
How good is it when you're at a festival and one of your favorite bands does a cover of a song that's either by one of your other favorite bands or a song that's popularized in culture? Like, that's such a great moment. So I'm picking for that moment.
It's true. When I come to a Christian concert, one of my hopes is I hope someone covers Bryan Adams.
When you come to a Christian concert, especially as a teenager, you just hope that someone does something that is unchristian, because that's really what you're looking for. That's what I was looking for.
I'm looking for a To Love Right on Her Arms Honey.
Nice.
Frankly. Honestly. Okay. Well, there was one artist on here that could satisfy the hip-hop quotient. And he could satisfy that quotient because a lot of his music was very rock heavy. Now, it might bother people that were leaving Thousand Foot Crutch to this point, and they are not drafted. I thought I could smuggle Trevor McNevin into this artist because for whatever reason, I just assumed you'd be a big TFK fan and take them. But I'm drafting with my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th pick, Manifest. Yeah. Another Canadian. No Plan B, outstanding track. Avalanche and Renegade, outstanding track. So beautiful. That's when Trevor's going to come out and he's going to join Manifest on stage. We're going to sing, and that's the song that gets a lot of radio play. We're going to kick off this set with 4, 3, 2, 1, which is a great opener. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a great opener because I've seen Manifest open with it. We are going to play the 2 hits. Bounce if you want to just bouncing. Move if you want to just move it. And then we're going to play Impossible. Mm-hmm. And we are going to scream that at the top of our lungs. It seems impossible for me to let this go.
It's such a good pick. I was surprised to see Manifest on here.
I didn't think you were going to take him, so I was like, how long could I wait?
He's a hip-hop artist, but with
crossed over.
Yeah, major rock influence. Another honorable mention that's not on this list, KJ52.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, Christian, like, even in our festival days, like, Toby Mac was about as rap as it got.
Yeah.
Other than, like, the first slot on the side stage that no one was really at. Sometimes there'd be, like, a rap artist there. But Manifest, and then KJ52, I saw him also at Acquire the Fire. For my 8th pick, we've got 3 picks left.
Wow.
I am going with a band that is 1,000 Foot Crutch adjacent.
We're going to do everything but pick that.
And I am ashamed to admit that I just learned this morning. That FM Static is a side project of 1,000 Foot Crutch. I had no idea. And it's so funny because the music is so different. If I have a pick for the ladies, it's this one. Right?
Good call.
Like, it's as romantic as my set list, as my festival is going to get.
And FM Static was very big with the ladies.
Yeah.
They have a great crossover song with Trisha Baumhart, who I believe is the lead singer of Super Chick?
Okay, I don't know this one.
Barlow Girl? I'm going to research this.
Okay.
You keep looking that up.
Yeah, FM Static. So we talked about this early in the show. Brady and I,
Super Chick.
yeah. Brady and I were super chicks. We had a lot of feminine energy. While being like thoroughly heterosexual. And so like deep in the feels about our romantic relationships with women. And I remember FM Static being my like, I'm alone in my room thinking about a girl.
Oh, yeah.
I'm listening to FM Static.
Top tracks.
I'm honestly, admittedly, I'm not good with track names.
Tune, lyric, hum.
Yeah, not off the top of my head.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not recent. Maybe I should. You caught me yesterday listening to a Jars of Clay record from 2007.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll do this afternoon. I'll play some FM Static to bring me back in my feels because it has been a long time.
I have them in front of me, so I don't know if I would know the names of the tracks off the top of my head either, but 3 Days Later,
Yeah.
Crazy Mary.
Oh, that one hurts so good.
There it is.
Oh,
Something to Believe In, definitely Maybe, and Donna. Back to back
Yeah, it's
to
a
kick
lot.
off their debut was like, oh my goodness, this is not a side project.
Yeah.
This is a bona fide.
it's dramatic storytelling too.
Another concept album, Dear Diary, 2009. Great album. You're just taking all the concept albums, evidently, in this draft. Okay.
picks remain.
2 picks remaining. Where do I want to go here? Well, I know who we're not drafting, which is Thousand Foot Garage.
If they're here at this point, they're not getting taken.
Okay. Now, am I drafting for me at this point? Am I drafting? I mean, I feel like I've assembled like just no skips on this festival right now. And I don't want to introduce someone that's a little bit too me focused, like perhaps the person sitting across the table from me, and not a crowd pleaser. So I don't want to go too heavy. FM Static needs to be removed from this list twice.
Yes.
Okay, I am going to make another pick for the ladies. And I'm going to go with Stellar Cart.
Okay.
The great thing about Stellar Cart is that unlike most of Alex's picks, questionable if they even are saved. Questionable if they want to be walking with the Lord. Stellar Cart's 2 most famous tracks. One is called Jesus Loves You. The other one is called Me and Jesus.
Yeah. It's pretty good stuff.
And Me and Jesus, you can belt that even if it's a bit corny nowadays, even if it's a bit cheesy, it's still really great. Pop punk, Procrastinating, Activate. Ooh, those were both good. Liked those a lot. Ooh, Angels in Chorus. That was a fun ending one. This is a bit niche.
It's a band I did not listen to very much.
Yeah, they were like really girly.
Yeah.
And I really liked them.
Yeah. This next band I'm going to pick with my 9th pick. We've mentioned our journey into the Icelandic Highlands a few times already.
Okay.
We listened to a lot of music on that trip, evidently.
Yeah.
You and me and Tristan, there's a record on here that I have to go with. And it's actually the only record that I ever really got into with this band. The band is Run Kid Run. And when I learned on this trip that you also knew this band and also had an affinity for this record, I felt like, wow, somebody else knows about this hidden gem.
Yeah.
Love at the Core is the name of the album. And you want to talk about no skips? You want to talk about singing at the top of your lungs for 36 minutes straight.
And I'm singing for freedom.
Yeah. I don't know who's, honestly, with the second time slot in my festival, I don't know exactly who's going to be here for this.
I will.
But you and me are going to be here for Run Kid Run.
So I couldn't draft Run Kid Run for this reason, because only Alex and I would show up.
But if you and I both know them, someone else out there has to be so thrilled that they're going to be at the festival.
And we're hardcore. But I'm here as a businessman to sell tickets.
That's
Live events are not easy economically, okay? And I will let Run Kid Run's album stream on repeat overnight to send them every cent for every listen that I possibly can. Shout to their debut album as well, This Is Who We Are. Also, no skips. They only had 3 albums. I did not listen to Patterns, their 3rd album, and then they just disappeared. Because why? Because they just didn't get the fan base as hard as I tried. And so I'm glad that they are represented here today because I couldn't bring myself to do it. Let's talk through one pick left. Here are the bands remaining on this list. We've got Group 1 Crew, Red, the aforementioned 1,000 Foot Crutch, Pillar, Disciple, Fireflight, House of Heroes, The Almost, Emery, Me Without You, The Almost, again, and Project 86. And I'm going to make a pick that Alex's misogyny is going to accuse me as being a token pick, but what he doesn't understand is that this band had 3 excellent records that I would bang over and over and over again. Shouts to the only female-led artist on this docket, Fireflight.
Yeah.
Fireflight, we're going to be playing Unbreakable, the number 1 track. Now I am unbreakable. We're going to play Stand Up. For Those Who Wait, You Gave Me a Promise, and You Decide. And I have a great story about this song, You Decide, because I saw Fireflight at the side stage of Kingdom Bound.
Wow.
And they played You Decide, and guess who was in the front row? Me, because they were a smaller act. And right next to me was the Alex of the day, my youth group friend, my mirror image in youth group. Shouts to Zachariah. And the lead singer of Fireflight was singing You Decide off of their debut album. And the lyrics are, you decide, who will you run to? And the whole song is like, are you going to pick God or not? Mm-hmm. And because it's You Decide, she's pointing at people. And at one point, the final chorus, she goes, you decide, and points right at Zach's face. And I promise you, this man, for years, would recount that moment. I'm quite confident that it triggered some type of crisis in his life. Where he's like, that was the Lord.
I do need to decide.
You did like that. She pointed at me. She could have pointed at anyone. I was like, exactly. There's like 8 people here. I mean, there's 4 choruses.
Yeah.
It was kind of inevitable. No, like that was the Lord. So shouts to Firefly.
Wow.
Showing up. Final band on the docket.
With my final pick, I'm also making a business decision.
About time.
Yeah. The business decision would be to choose 1,000 Foot Crutch, which I'm not going to do.
Throw up your rock fist.
This business decision is to get people to the festival.
Yeah.
Like No, but at 1 o'clock when it starts.
Oh.
To see a band that you don't get normally the opportunity to see, but the frontman of this band is already at my festival because he's playing later on. He's playing the drums for a little band later on that you might know called Under Oath. But I'm going to go with The Almost, which is Aaron Gillespie's side project. I think they have like 3, 4, maybe 5 records. And actually one that's like pretty recent, 2018 maybe. But Aaron Gillespie, I'm banking on Aaron Gillespie because I know he's got a cult following. I'm banking on him being enough of a draw and the rarity of being able to see The Almost. He's already at the festival. So I'm banking on him being enough of a draw to get enough people out to 1 o'clock to get the vibes circulating.
Here's why this is a great pick. Alex's festival is underwater already. It's going bankrupt. They cannot sign a 10th band. They look around. Who's here already? Aaron, want to do a set?
Do you have anyone have another band?
Can you play Amazing Like It Is, Aaron? Come on. Yeah. Monster, Aaron. Aaron, come on. We'll do a Bad Christian live show.
Yes. I didn't choose Emery. Should have.
Okay, so my final set. We're kicking it off with Fireflight, Stellar Cart to follow, Manifest. We're going hip hop. Then Classic Crime, bring in the heavy heads. Skillet, crowd pleaser. Now everyone's here. Hawk Nelson. The guys are like, well, Bring Him Out is pretty good.
Yeah.
The show. Okay. Oh, the one thing I have left. Yeah, okay, we'll sit through some of the more ballads, but we're here. Family Force 5. The old people, ooh, should we have left by now? But everyone's crunk. We've gone crunk with it. Oh my gosh, is that Lecrae's music? He wasn't even on the ticket. It's Drake bringing out Travis Scott. I can't believe it. Hit the cry button. Everyone's hitting the button.
Yeah.
Reliant K comes out. Oh no, they didn't play Deathbed. What to do? Oh well, we've got Toby Mac next. All the grown-ups are like, this is why we came down with our campers. Oh, what a stand-up Christian artist. You know, back in the day, I was in the light like he was in the light. Switchfoot, everyone loves it. We're done. No, here comes Matthew Thiessen for Deathbed. We're all weeping. We all come to the altar and we recommit our lives to Jesus Christ. And we say, this was the best day ever.
Wow. You have pled a really good case and you've compiled a really good festival. I'm going to do my best to plead my case here. 1 o'clock. You don't expect to see this man on stage yet, but you see the luscious red locks of Aaron Gillespie. You're like, what's he doing at the front of the stage? He should be behind the drum kit. It's like, is that the almost? You've got people who are in line waiting for the Man of Steel because they're going to go to the festival later. They're flocking out of line to go see Aaron Gillespie. This is 1 o'clock to see.
Is that
the
a
almost.
six-pack on stage?
So... And
He's just crushing cans up there.
yeah, so after the almost, we've got people at the venue. Run Kid Run comes to stage, and we just hope that there's somebody in the crowd besides Brady and Alex that knows who they are. But the people are already there. They know what's coming up later, so they stick around. See, I'd be a fool to bring up Run Kid Run first. That's why Aaron Gillespie serves a very vital purpose for my festival. After Run Kid Run, FM Static comes on stage.
And Alex is like, hey, who's that front man? I ain't never seen him before.
I mean, he's the only one there because they didn't have to be. Thousand Foot Crutch wasn't invited to the festival, so it's not like he. Yeah, so he comes on stage and he plays some music for the ladies, which we know at a festival like this, the romantic vibes between the youths are flowing.
The number of female interests I brought to Kingdom Bell one after another each year.
Yeah. And so at this point in my festival, I think we are getting into the punk section. Yes, that's right. And so here comes MXPX.
Everyone 45 plus is like, yeah.
It's like, are we at the right concert still? This
The age gap between FM Static and MXPX.
This can't be Christian music. I don't think. But we're enjoying it because, it doesn't feel like Christian music. This is a little bit.
Oh, is that Brian Adams?
This is a little bit naughty. We're listening to punk music. And then... the 2-pack of the century, the OC Supertones and the 5 Iron. See? What's a Christian music festival without a ska section? We don't know, but now we know. The OC Supertones, the 5 Iron Frenzy, there's interplay in between the bands. They're sharing horns. They're on the stage at the same time. There's 14 people on stage. You've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, no one's seen anything like it.
Exactly. We're trying to do something new here at my festival.
Oh.
I think after this section, the heavy section, I forgot. Aaron Gillespie comes back. He comes back with his bandmates from Under Oath.
He's definitely not sober.
We are. There's a lot of headbanging going on. And Berlin comes up. This is serious rock music.
Under Oath keeps cursing. Where are we at the right place? Have you heard our new record?
Yeah.
Here it goes.
People are disoriented. Their necks are hurting from all the headbanging. And then the festival settles down.
Wow.
Into good Christian content. This is what people were here to see. The big ending to the show, a false ending, Need to Breathe, playing all the classics, and then May for the late night lovers, closing the show strong with the concept album that everybody loves.
Need to Breathe.
And then ending the concert at the end of that concept album because, like you pointed out astutely, there's really not that much.
Need to Breathe comes out. They're like, where's the singer? Oh, he's doing his own thing now. He's not with the band anymore.
So listeners, you decide. I don't know. I think it's pretty clear who's taking home the bragging rights this time around.
Man. When do you have to leave?
I don't know. A half an hour or so.
Okay.
If it wasn't hot in here before, it's hot in here now.
Okay, let's pound through some more
Listen,
questions.
there were a couple notable. I just want to give
Okay,
a shout
yeah.
out to the notable undrafted bands, like Thousand Foot Crutch, of course. But we don't need to talk about them anymore. Group One Crew left off. I thought maybe they would have slid into your set list.
So I left them off because I've seen them live and they didn't draw the way I thought they would. So I think they might have been bigger in my youth group than maybe Broad.
Emery, they could have been interchanged with Under Oath. Me Without You, like there are some emo youths
That's a cult
that would
following.
say Me Without You should be the headliner for both of our festivals. Wow, what a list, what a time, what a show.
Shouts to Red and their one good song.
Yeah.
Was it called Breathe Your Life Into Me? Breathe Into Me?
When you said Fireflight, I thought you also were referring to
Flyleaf.
Yes, also a female-led group.
I can
What
feel
was
you
the
all
big?
around me.
Yes, that was the big song of
Then
theirs.
covered by David Crowder.
Right.
That was big.
Yes.
On the same record. Was that Church Music? It was like the one he did How He Loves. You're just doing all the covers.
Yeah.
Interestingly, no Bryan Adams covers on that album.
Okay. Which question do you want to answer?
Okay, we're at
now?
number 8.
Number 8.
No.
Nope.
Number 7.
Number 7. I attend a church of less than 100 people. Guess what? That's most of us. Most of us attend a church less than 100 people. And I have a lot of older...
People are about to attend a festival less than 100 people. I know what's showing.
I have a lot of older generation rather than younger people in the church. Due to this, it's sort of hard to explain the concept of... Now I'm just thinking about concept albums. This is a serious question. This is a problem that a lot of churches are going through. Small church, lots of older people, not a lot of younger people. And so due to this, it's sort of hard to explain the concept of social media and technology. Of course, that's true, especially when we implement them into our events. What's the best way of going about this situation?
Okay, so we're going to make this really simple. You always want to connect it to mission, connect it to scripture.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the easiest way to approach conversations like this, where you are crossing cultural divides, crossing age gaps, is to find the commonality. What is the commonality? We want to fulfill the mission of the church.
Yeah.
We want to abide by scripture. So this is all just from the Great Commission. Why do I care about social media? Because I'm 32 years old and I grew up with it, partially, but also because I see it as a way to fulfill the mission of the church. Scale and attention on social media are unprecedented in human history. It's free to use. But back to the Great Commission. Being where the people are.
Yeah.
Across every age, ethnicity, socioeconomic class, gender, suburban, urban, rural, social media is used by most U.S. adults daily. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Why are we here? Because everyone is here. And we want to be where the people are because the good news needs to be shared with the whole world.
Yeah. And this is true for like not just this specific situation, but for when you're trying to introduce anything new at your church. This is not a means to like hoodwink people into doing whatever you want. That's not what this is. But if you have a noble idea, a new initiative, or in this case, trying to introduce older people to a common technology, but something that's new to them, anchoring it in your vision, your mission as a church, and into the scriptures, it's a way to speak the same language, to meet people where they're at, to speak their language, to explain to them the why you want to do this, what it's going to accomplish. It's not to convince the older generation to get a TikTok account. That's not what this is about, but to say like, hey, we want to allocate resources to this. This is the reason, and I'm going to speak your language to explain to you why we're doing this. And that's at the very least a good way to achieve understanding. But like I said, not a way to manipulate people into doing whatever you want, but definitely a way to achieve understanding.
You can also anchor it to something that you've done in the past. So let's say you've done mailers in the past. Like, why did we do mailers? Like, well, we did it for these reasons.
Yeah.
We wanted to reach new people. Okay, well, social media can reach more people in the same geographic region for less cost. And then even if we don't reach any of them, we've served our existing audience well.
Right.
Mailers only care about reaching new people. And if they fail, they cost a lot of money and there was no fruit from them.
Yeah.
So you can compare it to something else you've done and then anchor it in an example. That can sometimes be helpful too. People work through things differently. I'm very much like, what are the values and the mission? Which should be where we're coming from, but sometimes that can be a bit too abstract. If you can relate it to a practical example or solution that the church has pursued in the past, you can say, look, this isn't unlike us. Because people like to think, that's not our type of church. Like, yeah, this is our type of church. We've tried to fulfill the same things that social media does. We've just done it unsuccessfully, more expensively, with no fruit in other avenues, this is a more successful avenue to fulfill that same purpose.
That's right. Question 8.
Yeah.
How much value do you put in boosting posts and doing ads on social media? Are there any general recommendations you would give for how to use paid advertising on social?
Yeah, so with discovery algorithms and the era of social that we're in right now, I see no need for boosting posts. The whole point of boosting a post was, at least in the social graph era, you would have a post that did disproportionately well within your existing audience relative to your other posts. But in the social graph era, you could have the best post you've ever done and it would still have a cap.
Yep.
It would reach 100% of your followers
Yep.
and no one else. So boosting was basically like, hey, our audience selected this as a winner. Now we're going to pay money to have distribution and reach beyond our existing audience. Well, now with discovery algorithms, they do that for free.
Yeah.
You'll have a winner in your audience, which will then be distributed for free beyond your existing audience. And paying to do this now in this era is almost seen as like, why would you need to pay for distribution like that? I'm not gonna do. I'm not. That there must be something wrong here.
There's very few things that I swipe past faster on my For You page than sponsored posts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there is still a place for paid ads, and that is for advertising bridge events in your church. We're not going to go into this in depth. We've done that before. If you search Facebook Ads Church on YouTube or in Google, our blog post on this will come up with real examples from real churches. Simplest way of describing this is, what are the events that your church is already hosting annually or seasonally that are at the intersection of faith and culture? Sometimes this is Easter or Christmas programming. Sometimes this is a harvest festival. It's trunk or treat. Hey, that's around the corner right now. At the time that we're recording this, you do a Facebook ad for that. It's a great way to serve your community, establish your presence in the community, which is always the prerequisite of people checking you out. Talk to pastors about this. They're like, hey, I just want people to know about us. Great. Serve your community. Don't ask for something. Meet their needs first. Then they're aware of you. That's the prerequisite to them ever attending in person. And so Facebook ads can be a great catalyst for that. Ton of success stories in that blog post and video to explore.
And we talked with Trey Van Camp recently about his success with YouTube ads.
Great
actually.
point.
So he made a church welcome video, and it eclipses all the other videos on his channel as far as views go. When we talked to him a few weeks ago, it was 26,000 views or something. And we asked him, like, where are all these views coming from? And he said, well, they're coming from this place, this place, and this place. But he said, we throw $5 a day of YouTube ads at this video. And this is how we're reaching people with the information on how to come to our church and how to attend our church. And so it sounds like that's the only place he spends his ad money online, and it's proven to be very fruitful for him.
Yeah, check out that conversation for sure.
Yeah. Question 9, Brady. If Threads was destined to fail, what is the value in getting started with it at all?
Yeah, so you're really just considering the trade-off of the time that you're putting in versus what you might get out of it. And the earlier you get into something, the higher the potential reward, the greater the potential risk.
Right.
So the churches that got into TikTok earliest, like one church from a couple of years ago, a couple of episodes ago, they got into it a couple of years ago. Before any church was like, why would I spend my time on TikTok? They were doing it.
Yeah.
And now they have 250,000 followers. And that's translated over to crossover growth on Instagram, 100,000 followers. That could have also resulted in TikTok never becoming a thing and closing down.
Yep.
So they're reaping the reward, but then they're also a church that was taking the risk when others weren't willing to. So that's how we're trying to evaluate these types of decisions. I like to use the venture capital analogy for this. So venture capitalists, what they'll do is they'll go into these early stage startups and they'll say, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of millions of dollars. We want to see if you can, with the right hiring and the right ad spend and the right product development, become a big player. 9 out of 10 times, or 99 out of 100 times that they make that bet, they lose. But the one that wins makes up for every loss. That's the math.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same approach that we're taking with new platforms. Now, you might not be in the place where you can invest that time, but I would argue that if you haven't yet really seen traction on any social platform, then the impetus to really get in on these new platforms might even be greater for you, because it's like there's only going to be so much real estate to snatch up. We talk about being pioneers in this time right now. All the physical land has been explored on this planet Earth, but this new virtual land online is new. And people are snatching up that real estate at really low prices. And then we all show up 3 years later and we're like, oh, wow, this is a great place to be. Yeah, and it's expensive now. It's saturated. You're not going to be able to find a place as easy. And so if you don't yet have a place, then when you do see something open up and you don't know, maybe that land is not going to turn out to be good. No one's going to end up living in that. Oh, you bought land, no one lives there anymore. That's unfortunate, but you got to kind of take your chance with it.
When Threads dropped, and we talked about this on the show, like it was incredible how many users came over to Threads. We're talking, 100 million users, I believe. And that was due a lot of that was due to how seamless the transition from Instagram to Threads was. Meta deserves a lot of credit for that. But I've seen online, I see this anecdotally with the engagement on Threads on my feed, like how often the people I follow are posting compared to on X, formerly Twitter. But I've also seen the sentiment like, 90% of the users have left this place. And I haven't been able to find that statistic anywhere online because I'm sure that Meta is not eager to post how many of those users that came over have dropped off and are not using the platform.
I found the source. It's ELON Musk.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, we should check the community notes for that. But yeah, I mean, like Threads, it was so seamless to get over there, and actually required so little effort for a church to jump on there because our church is, maybe your church doesn't have a Twitter account, but your church probably has an Instagram account. And so to jump over onto that text platform that was basically like Twitter was so seamless and so easy. It didn't require a whole lot of effort. Crafting a social media strategy for posting text posts for your church might have been new. And so I don't know how many churches kind of went forward with that and have stepped into that area. But I'm still hopeful because I'm hopeful for Threads on a personal level because with every day that passes, I see the demise of X, formerly known as Twitter. It just feels inevitable. And so I really hope that somehow Threads gets a second life and we can all be sharing text posts and encouragement over there because I don't know how much longer I'll be on Twitter.
Wow.
Next question. How long and how much work does it take to shoot a single podcast? Well, on a good week where nothing goes wrong, it takes 3.5 days. So it takes 1 day, roughly, Wednesday, for us to do this. We prep in the morning, we record in the morning, we go out for lunch in the afternoon. Truthfully, on Wednesdays, we don't do a whole lot of work in the afternoon. So let's just say that Wednesday afternoon is spoken for.
Yikes.
On Thursday morning, I will start dumping footage and coloring footage and then exporting footage from Resolve into Premiere. I use some plugins in Premiere to do a lot of the chopping between camera angles. That's why we bring it into Premiere. And so by the end of Thursday, I am usually back in Resolve with the podcast chopped up, roughly, if nothing has gone wrong. Friday, I will spend making what I call executive edits, which is watching the podcast through, adjusting any of those cuts. And Friday and Monday, I will spend adding any sort of assets we have. Audio processing all gets done on Thursday as well. Friday and Monday, I'm putting the podcast together. And then hopefully by the end of Monday, I am exporting. And Tuesday is spent publishing. So uploading the video to YouTube, doing YouTube description and tags, all that stuff. Thumbnail, uploading the audio, exporting the audio, processing it for podcasting, uploading it to Libsyn, and making sure everything is ready to go for scheduling on Tuesday so that on Wednesday at 3 a.m. Eastern time, the video and the audio show go live. So that's a week if nothing goes wrong. Sometimes things go wrong and it takes 5 full work days to get it all done and ready to go for Wednesday. But I feel like we're hitting our stride. It was a big learning curve, not in the sense of like learning how to use any of the tech that we're using now because it's all cameras and lights and microphones that we're familiar with. But this style of show, the 3 camera angles, our post-production process, it has been a couple months of working through the kinks. So those first couple episodes, it took working overtime hours to get them done. But now I feel like we're really hitting our stride. So beyond the recording day, 2.5 editing days usually get me there. Yeah.
What about when the podcast is 3 hours long?
Well, we're about to find out now. Hey, that's it. We've got one more question. We got a couple more questions? Oh, there's buried down there. Well, we've got the one question that everyone's been looking forward to.
Yeah.
Which is, what's wrong lately?
Our favorite segment.
Beyond the temperature in this room?
What's wrong lately? I know I'm dying. Okay. I got 3 gripes to share here. The first is
labeled in our notes as part 1, part 2, and part 3, as if it's like a trilogy.
Oh, yeah. And I've been saving these up. I got a lot of problems.
Okay.
So the first is, we all know that marketers ruin everything. We also know some of the best performing content on social is content that appears to be not staged.
Right.
Right? If you think about Reptile Lady on the plane, that was a viral sensation because you're like, wow, look at this real drama. We love, one of my favorite TikToks to watch is these guys that just have this basketball net in like city centers in Europe, and they'll just pass a ball to someone who's walking by, and they'll just take a shot.
Love it.
And it just happens, and they just, when someone makes it, they celebrate and they pop like confetti, and everyone's like, yeah. That's real. Q&A on the street. Be like, hey, you know, what artist do you think is overrated? And you're getting live reactions. It feels authentic. It feels genuine.
Love is Blind, for example. Real, unedited,
Absolutely.
unscripted.
Not at all.
Yeah, just like really, really authentic content. Yeah,
That's
I
about
get
as
it.
genuine as you can get. So marketers picked up on this and said, let's start staging real life drama. So I don't know if you watched this post. So we'll put this on the stage or on the screen for people to see. But like, this was a fake airplane that I'm confident like was set up by a big agency.
Okay.
Because like they rented a fake airplane. All these people look like beautiful enough to be actors, but not so beautiful that they're like real
I hadn't
actors.
seen this before.
So you watched it.
Yeah.
And the whole drama is that this kid is kicking the back of the seat of this person in front of them, and like it's like, oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen? What's gonna
It's
happen?
Lady on the Plane.
And I'm watching it, and I'm like, my BS meter's going off, and I realize that I have now developed, for lack of better initials, BS meter for real life drama that is not real life.
Right. So non-ironically, when it comes to Love is Blind, I do have a more attuned BS meter than Rebecca. It just has to do with actually what I know about like post-production, like how scenes are cut.
Yeah.
And like looking for continuity and stuff like that. And when we're watching reality TV, I'll tell her, be like, actually, like that was stitched together. This was manufactured. That wasn't a response to this question. She's like, how'd you know? And I'll be able to tell her. But yeah, so that comes up in our reality TV show too.
And I realize like
Yeah,
it's hard enough to like just be on the internet. And now we have to figure out, did this actually happen?
Right.
Or did it not? Like this is a set.
Yeah.
Who for what reason would you create and or rent a stage to set up a fake set to cast 6 actors? Like one, the perfect family, one, the grandmother, one, you're purposefully choosing different ethnicities to like heighten the drama.
They got you.
But why? I don't know why, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
The sensitivity that we have to not just be like, is this content good or not? Is someone selling me something or not? It's like, is this real thing actually real, or is it actors?
Well, that's what makes me nervous about like deep fake technology, like AI, when it comes to video creation, is because for so long, video has been the record of truth. If there's video footage of it, we can corroborate it as true. But I've seen some deepfakes that are so convincing. It seems to me that we're headed into a world where video will no longer be the record of truth the way it has been. And then, so how do you discern what is real?
Yeah, I've thought about this. My only answer, and I'm not sure if this would ever become a thing, is I think we've said this before, where there's actually like an agency, either like a global agency or governmental agencies even, that you have to like, the same way you go through a process to serve alcohol, you have to like go through a process to be verified as a non-AI creator,
Right.
so that people can trust that what they're seeing is actually you. But like, to what extent? Like, I saw a picture of The Flash, the movie, and I remember seeing it, and I was like, man, The Flash's butt is defined. And I was like, that doesn't look human.
Yeah.
And then a week later, they had the side-by-side, and I was like, oh my gosh, his butt looks nothing like that.
Yeah.
So the post-production was like, look, The Flash needs to look more muscular, specifically in his glutes. So that's still him, but it's augmented him.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part 1.
Okay.
Part 2 of what's wrong
I'm going to
lately.
let you have this moment, by the way. Yeah.
Just legalistic comments. So, I was researching to do some interviews with churches. And the best way that I found was to just open up my Instagram Reels feed and just swipe through. And I was being exposed to all these new churches, and they were doing such great things. So cool. I would DM them, but hey, you want to come on the show? And like every one of them was like, yes, we love your stuff. I was like, well, that's really cool. And I'd be like, this content is great. And I was like, I felt like I was back in youth group again. I was like, imagine when I made content in youth group, I shared it with like, not the church. They wouldn't even let me show the church. I would just show like my friends. Like, look at this video announcement we made for like our youth group. It's me jumping over a bush and then being like, come to Sock Wars. I was like, we made it with a camera.
Yeah.
Now I would make a video like that. Oh, it got 2.9 million views.
Yeah.
That would not have been good for my ego at that point. I'm pretty sure. So I opened the comments.
Also not good for your spirit.
And I immediately was reminded as to why I was so upset with youth groups so often. Because it was just such obscene legalism. Just the silliest things. The number one comments, I'm like, is this still what we're obsessing over in like 2023? Like, we're just recycling the same issues. I don't know why I should be surprised that we're not rid of those at this point. And sometimes this happens to me. Did we talk about like me responding to tattoo comments on the show already?
I don't remember if we talked about it on the show.
Outside the show.
Yeah.
But just like people will be like Leviticus 19:26 or something. And I'll be like, yeah, the verse before that says don't shave your face. You have no problem with my shaved face.
Right.
And they'll be like, clearly, you're running from the Lord. I'm like, just give me a scripture.
Yeah.
Like, because the one you just said is Levitical law inconsistently applied. They're like, your body is a temple. I was like, that's about sex.
Yeah.
That's not. And they'll be like, wow, pagan. I'll be like,
Yeah. Okay.
if someone interprets the scriptures differently than me, I've come to terms with that because that happens a lot. I have yet to come across people that are just making up things that don't exist in scripture. And then when one verse is like clearly, hey, you are applying cultural bias to a scripture that was not about that at all. Like, no, you are culturally lost. I'm like, I posted on Instagram. I was like, all right, Pro-Church Nation, I need your help. I don't want to get lost in this anymore. I was like, this is my commitment. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I posted a poll right after and says, can Brady do this? And 95% of you voted no, which you didn't know, but that was all a ploy to create an underdog mentality in myself to which I could then overcome and beat the odds that you all stacked against me. So that every one of you that did not believe in me, you are now my op. And I just need you to know that. Final part 3 of What's Wrong Lately is, again, the algorithms of the internet messing with our brains. Things seeming more prolific than they are in real life.
Oh, this is brutal.
This is a serious problem.
Yeah.
Like some people are like, oh no, it's a serious problem when like I'm scrolling and I see like, you know, a provocative image that I didn't want to see. Yeah, that's easy to fix. I don't know how you fix this one. Or it's not as easy to fix. I know how you fix it, but you first have to identify it to fix it, which I don't know if you can easily identify it. So there was this video the other day of a person like that jumped into like a pool, but it was like a pool that hadn't been like cleaned very recently. And then they got like this brain eating bacteria and like died or something. And
so you have filled in your pool with concrete.
Right. And so everyone was like, don't go into still water.
Yeah.
It's not safe. People would watch videos. Like, oh, I'm swimming in Italy. I'm on the Amalfi Coast. Like, you idiot, brain eating bacteria. And then a doctor had to jump on and be like, okay, here's the thing. This water had to have been still for this amount of days. Right. It had to be this temperature. No water gets hot. And they described it as these extreme circumstances that led to this. But for a while, everything on my feed was like, just so you know, you could die. And I was like, man, there are so many things that are unsafe. And then it had to be debunked for me to realize. Yeah. There's another way that this is happening. I keep getting videos on my TikTok that are people that say they're leaving Canada because it's too expensive to live here.
Okay.
And they're like, this used to be a great country, but I'm leaving. And I'm getting so many of them. I'm like, is there a crisis of the middle class? Yes. Is everyone leaving Canada? No. And I can't tell how much of a problem is real, broadly, and how much is the algorithm showing me the same thing over and over again because it's scaring me a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's scaring me, I'm watching it a little bit longer than I should, and then I'm seeing more of it than I should, and because of its proximity and prevalence, I'm now believing it's more existent than it actually is.
Yeah, and that has real dramatic impact on how we live our life outside of the phone. Right? So like how you live locally where you're planted. I know someone who liked TikTok just like as much as the rest of us, but it was really stoking like this flame of anxiety in them because that's what the algorithm does. You watch a video about brain eating disease all the way through because I don't know, you never heard of it before. And so the algorithm hits you with another one, and now you're watching it all the way through because you have to answer the question, how much of a risk is this to my daily life?
Exactly.
Right? And so then it's this negative feedback loop. We talked about this. But it was stoking this fear and this anxiety in their life, in their body, about things that are real but aren't really happening right here.
Pose no threat or harm to them whatsoever.
So they did
for
a
the
very
most part.
exactly. So they did a very courageous thing, which is delete the app. They have not re-downloaded the app, and their life is dramatically their real life outside of the phone. They still have Instagram, like they're still on their phone, still on social media, but their real life, where they live outside of their phone, is dramatically less anxious.
Did this person ask you who their favorite person was?
Listen, I cannot confirm it, but like it's so true. The algorithms are just as responsive, maybe even more so, to the things we're afraid of than to the things that we love, and that is a dangerous cycle to get into. Something I think any person should be mindful of, but definitely Christians, because we have an example of I think about Paul, who says, like, just think on things that are beautiful and lovely and trustworthy and of good praise and good report. Like, we have this precedent in our wisdom tradition and literature. Like, this is a prudent thing for Christians. Like, be mindful, be cautious about how much information we're receiving from any source like that, but definitely like how the algorithm is, and the algorithm is not a nefarious thing, but it wants to keep you on the app as long as possible. That's what it wants. That's what it's designed to do.
It's not a nefarious thing, but it's not an altruistic thing. And human nature is human nature.
Yeah.
So if it's going to mirror human nature,
Right.
it is going to drift towards mirroring the bad.
Yeah. It's not neutral. And just something to be mindful
It is
of.
neutral. We're not neutral.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's reflecting
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
I had a problem a couple of years ago when I realized that I was stuck in this like political issue where like
Yeah.
I was getting only outrage politics. And once that was clear to me, I made adjustments to my feed, started getting information on that subject matter elsewhere outside of the algorithm from more trusted sources, and I was fine. And I have interest in that, and so finding trusted sources made more sense. This one's a bit more difficult because it's like, hey, did you know this thing that you didn't know is actually a problem? And I don't have firm thoughts on that, and so it's difficult for me to identify what is real and what is not real, what is a threat, how much of a threat, do I need to care about this, do I not? And it's curious how we're developing, all of us, at all times, our own algorithm for parsing information online. And media literacy is not this like course that you can take and they go, I now know how to fix this. Because the algorithms are continually evolving, and social media in its infancy still is continually evolving. And so every time you feel like you've made a positive change, and you have, and hopefully you put that behind you, you need to then work on the next update.
Yeah.
I have this end of year review, and one of the final questions I ask myself is, what did you change your mind on this year? And I keep track of that so that I can prove to myself, like, you were wrong about something in the past. Something that you thought was horrendous, you actually found out was fine, or vice versa. And sometimes I describe that as, what software updates did you perform this year? Or basically, like, there was some type of like firmware in the way that I was approaching the world that was faulty, and it kept producing this bug. And I had to make this change to eliminate that.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to be one that I'm going to have to figure out this year. I'm not certain the right thing, except that healthy skepticism towards, like, if you see something that's new, that's a problem, this is a danger. Healthy skepticism towards, like, this is probably overblown to some extent. Now I have to figure out how much of an extent, but my default response is going to be like, nice try, not again, and then I will investigate it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's good.
When do you have to go?
7 minutes from now.
Okay, let's bang out these final 3 questions.
What's one weird pet peeve that you have?
Styling proper nouns correctly.
And I don't think that's weird.
People don't care about this.
Yeah.
I think it's because our company is pro church tools. Capital P, capital C, capital T, with spaces in between. But consistently get stylized, pro church tools, all one word, all lowercase. Pro church tools, capital at the first each word, but all one word. And so what I have this weird tendency to do is logos are often stylized not the way the legal name is. So if I'm working with a company and I go to their website, the word might be stylized as one word as the company, but that's actually not what it is. It's just stylized weird. So I'll scroll down to the footer and look at where it says like copyright, and I'll look at how they stylize it and then send it to them that way.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's just a annoying extra step that I think most people don't care to make.
Yeah, we run into it here because we create different content here. A few team members create different content in different measures, and some people don't have the same compulsion that you or I do about stylizing proper nouns. And so, like, when it comes to, I don't know, for example, writing a title for a help document, we run into maybe some mixed case capitalization.
A fireable offense.
Okay, mine I have talked about on the show before is the sound of people chewing, and mostly any sounds that come out of mouths. It's not just chewing, but like just mouth sounds. And it occurred, I brought it up again because first it's the first thing that comes to mind for me, but it happened this week in our home. It was a holiday on Monday. Asher was asleep. Rebecca and I were home alone. The power was out. So there was no music, no hum of the refrigerator, nothing. And so actually Asher wasn't even there. We had dropped him off at my parents because he was spending the night there. So it's just the two of us. She came home. She was hungry. She's pregnant. She's allowed to be hungry. She's eating a bag of chips in the house. We have a small little house. And I was sitting there reading a book. And she deserves to sit on the couch and eat her bag of chips. So instead of saying something or glancing in her direction, I made the most conscious decision just to get up normally, quietly, and just like go somewhere else and do something.
Not making it seem like you were abandoning her.
Exactly. Because I didn't want her to make her feel like you're being loud and I need to leave. And I didn't want her to have to change what she was doing. Eat your chips. I want you to eat your chips right where you are. This is my problem, not yours. So I got up and left. No problems. Everything was good. 6 hours later, we have some people over, and it came up in conversation somehow.
Yikes.
And she's like, yeah, and this happened earlier, and you said something about it. I said, I didn't say something about it. I got up. I just got up and quietly moved away. She's like, yeah, but that meant that you could hear me. I'm like, yes, we know this about me, that when I hear this, I can't. I physically can't. So I don't know what to do. Sometimes I try to endure. Sometimes I try to quietly remove myself. I just must suffer. I just must suffer.
Now, you do have a name next to this.
Yes, misophonia, I think is how it's pronounced, which is, I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you've led me up to it, it is like, it's a physical reaction. Like, it's not a mind over matter thing that I can just,
Wow.
I can heal psychologically. This is a physical, visceral reaction, and I feel a little bit affirmed in that thanks to the internet.
And what was the name of your other problem?
Oh, what is the name? Aphantasia, or did I make that up?
The point I'm trying to make is that...
But this is the thing. I'm not this person, right? You know,
The point I'm trying to make
tell
is
the
that...
people. I'm not this person to go around and say like, oh, I have this, and this. I don't have an internal monologue. I can't see pictures. I would love to see. And I would love to enjoy chips on the couch with my wife. I just can't.
Every time we talk about a gripe, Alex has to turn it into a condition that he has, which you know what that does? It removes all personal responsibility. I could fix my proper nouns problem. I don't call it proper nounia.
Right.
And he, on the other hand,
They might though.
That wasn't
If
going
you
to
go
be good.
Google
Oh, yeah.
I got 2 questions left.
He's pushing it through. Okay, yeah. In order. Sorry.
Can you make a video about the balance of working in social media? I've been following you for almost 10 years, and you constantly have insanely good ideas. All the more, you always give off a presence of peace. Always? I can't work social media like that, and a lot of people struggle with the mental side of it. Hey, we were just touching on that a bit. How are you doing this?
Right, so it is a constant struggle.
Yeah.
I think being grounded in real life is the prerequisite.
Yeah.
My real life is very stable, and it is what matters most. That is the real world. When I'm on social, I have a good eye that is always developing to see through what's happening and what's not, and I think that helps me parse it in an honest way.
Yeah.
But even as we described, it's an ever-growing and evolving thing because we can all get kind of stuck in that, and if you have to take a break, that's okay too.
Yeah, and practically that's it, right? It's like, what are you doing in your real life about this? Like, go for a walk.
Touch grass.
Like, you go for a walk every morning. Like, that is an essential piece to your mental health and your ability to step into the digital world when you have to for work and engage. But it's like, if the comments are getting to you, like, turn off the friggin' phone. You know, like, look at your kids' eyeballs. Like, it's all practical stuff like that really enables you to do the work, because this is work. This is what we do for a living.
Yeah.
It sounds like, to the questioner, like, you've been working in social for 10 years. It's part of our daily job. Like, you have to get up, you have to do it. But what we're doing outside of it enables us to get up and do it. Final question. Are we sure?
Yes.
For this Bro Church Tools marathon. Hey, Brady and Alex, my pastor loves videos for everything. He would rather post a video on our website About Us page than write a paragraph explaining who we are. I don't think people will watch a video and would rather read or even skim the paragraph. Who's right?
You, the listener, are right. And that'll do it for this episode of the Bro Church Tools Show. Send in your questions for next time, and we'll talk to you next week.
I feel good about that salad. It was a good decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm full, but not in like a. I'm not full in like a car. I'm not full of carbs.
Yeah.
So I'm not lacking it. I'm not spiraling into despair, and then onto the couch.